Ninja, JK, dupla, jinxa, bota, chakra em cada linha de faca. Face, macramé no micado, base, espadas por frases. Sintático, repara no que diga, é paradigmático, não tenho paralelo, sou para lá de mágico. Sabes como rolo, martelo pneumático, técnica secreta do monstro roxo. Estamos a meter-nos no dojo, estamos a manter combos no jogo, só com uma espada nos tojos. Plano picado, não sabes de onde esta ave vem. Nenhum radar pode detectar onde está a nave, mãe, tu sabes bem. Somos a clique, somos o clã. É Monster Jinx cabrão, respeito ao vais comer tartan. Na terra do nunca não digo banzai. Vivo na espunca e tenho um bonsai. Ninja que é ninja, ninja, frotas imperiais e verso shinobi, nunca me canso, sou de Nairobi. Ágil como um ninja, rápido como um ninja, letal como um ninja, brutal como um ninja, fatal como um ninja, forte como um ninja, secreto como um ninja, devo mesmo ter um ninja.
Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus ninjas, 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 ninjas. Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus ninjas, 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 ninjas.
And we are live, everyone, and good evening, and welcome to another episode of Top 5 Collaborations with the Westerosi Ninja, that's me, and the Dog Show, otherwise known as John W., after a 6-week break. Can you guys believe it? 6 weeks of no Ninja and Dog. And what can we say? Thanks a lot for joining us tonight, where we will be going through our top 15 favorite albums of all time. Okay, this is sort of a repeat of what we did maybe 3 months ago. And what happened was that it was on Dog's channel, and Dog changed channels and we lost the video. But it was such a good stream, we decided, hey, let's do it again. But instead of making it top 10 like last time, we're gonna do top 15. So we're giving you guys extra because, you know, we had that break of 6 weeks. So anyway, what's going on, Dog? What's happening with you?
Oh man, it's great to be here tonight with you, Mel. It's been a long time, man. I've missed doing the collabs with you. We were just talking about doing our thumbnails and the PowerPoint presentations, and I missed doing that. It felt good to work on that last night for you folks. So and yeah, we're gonna do 15 for you folks. And I think when I got done deleting the old Dog Show channel, it was like about 2 minutes after that I went whoops, because there's, you know, this was one of the streams I remembered we worked really hard on, and I had a great time doing it. Was our top 10 favorite albums of all time. So hey, we added 5 more tonight, and yeah, some of it will be a repeat a little bit here and there, folks. But I hope you have a great time. And if you want to in the chat as well, you know, share your 15 through number 1 as we go through, and I'll give it back over to you there, Mel.
Yeah, and thanks a lot for that. You know, I mean, there are various reasons of why we were on a break. Namely, it was my fault, so blame Mel, because, you know, I'm actually in the process of moving and getting the hell out of Texas here. So for the past 6 weeks, I've been basically renovating my existing home, as well as you know, basically putting in furniture and, you know, moving other furniture into the garage, and you know, basically living like I was in a hotel for 6 weeks, until last weekend when I finally succumbed, gave in, and basically you know, decided to buy a folding table, and I basically was able now to put my computer and everything else on top of that, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So there you guys have it. So blame the folding table for the Westerosi Ninja being back online. So Dog, what's happening with your channel these days before we get going?
Not a whole lot going on right now. So I'm currently just in the middle of figuring out what type of content I want to, you know, get into next, and just trying to find my niche. If I totally butchered that pronunciation, trying to be fancy, man, but yeah, there's nothing going on right now, folks, on my channel. But I mean, you can sub if you want to, and maybe I'll start doing some content. But yeah. You know, it's definitely great to be here with you tonight, Milt. So
Oh, yeah, same here as well. So, again, guys, this is our top 15 favorite albums of all time. And, of course, it could be any kind of music, any kind of genre, any kind of artist. And, there's no right or wrong answer. So don't get butthurt, anybody, if we don't mention your favorite artists, okay, tonight, okay? It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It doesn't mean that we're right, okay? It's just the way it is. We only have 15 slots to fill here. So, Dawg.
And if I may interject real quickly,
Sure.
Mel, I was butthurt about a couple of albums that didn't make the top 15. So if that makes anybody feel any better, they can be butthurt with me.
Awesome. And hey, Dawg, we are on the channel of the Westerosi Ninja. So what does that mean for our first slide?
We're going to get some trivia, folks.
You got it. Okay, so let's go in and talk about the history of record albums and music albums and recordings and that kind of stuff. Well, just want everybody to know that the picture on the right is a picture of Thomas Alva Edison, and he was the inventor of the phonograph. Okay, in 1877, that was when it was patented. Basically, from at that point, once we were able to record sound and play it through a speaker, they found that there was a market for singers and whatnot and entertainment, and voila, the music industry and record album industry blew up at that point. So record sales actually reached their peak in 1999. Okay, at the end of the 20th century, when 600 million people spent an average of $64 a year buying records, okay, bringing in a total of 40 billion sales, okay, of recorded music. What happened afterwards when it got into the 21st century? Well, you had Napster, right? Then you had file sharing, and then you had all sorts of other illicit means of obtaining music, recorded music. And what that meant was the artists suffered, and as today, in today's world, the musical artists, what they basically get all their money from now is not from record sales, it's actually from touring these days. So it's kind of sad on that part, but that's just the way it is. So blame the leeches. Okay, so anyway, Thriller 1982 by Michael Jackson remains the best-selling album in history, okay, with an estimated 66 million copies as of now sold worldwide. That's a lot of albums, okay, for a particular album. In terms of the singles, Count on the Wind in 1997, believe it or not, the remake, basically is the best-selling physical single of all time with 33 million copies sold worldwide, which is pretty interesting,
I think that had a lot to do with Princess Diana.
Oh yeah, you're right. Definitely, Dawg, for sure. Yeah, and there aren't any specific statistics available, but it is widely acknowledged, okay, according to multiple sources, that the Beatles have sold more records than any other artist in the history of recorded music, and that isn't really surprising to me at all, Dawg. What do you think about that?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to quickly add that Thomas Alva Edison was born in Milan, Ohio. About an hour away from the home of rock and roll, Cleveland.
Oh, awesome.
There's a little town in Milan, and you can drive right by his birthplace. I grew up kind of near there.
Yeah, and Edison, was a great inventor. Besides the phonograph, he was the main proponent of direct current or DC electricity, which he ultimately lost out to AC electricity that is powering our homes today. So anyway, lost out to Westinghouse, but AC was actually a kind of an invention by Nikola Tesla, one of my idols of the physics world here. So anyway, I have to put in that plug for Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla, not Nikolai, by the way. So anyway, let's see. Anyway, I think we should get going here. What do you think, Dawg?
I think so. That'd be a great idea. We have quite a few to get through, so. Let's get this party rocking, if we will, I guess.
Yeah, and remember, guys, we're doing our top 15, so it could be a longer than usual stream here. Okay, so there might be some really bad singing, but we're gonna have to trudge on through, people. Trudge on through. Okay, so let's go. And Dawg, since you are the visiting team, guess what? You get to go first. And we're going to start out with Dawg's number 15, 1-5.
All right, folks. And my number 15 album here is Operation Mindcrime, which I believe is the third album from the band Queensryche. Just the first time I listened to this album all the way through, just absolutely blew me out of the water. I was on a really long road trip with some of my friends, and I remembered having the CD booklet out and just reading all the lyrics and just being so enamored in with the story of, because this is pretty much a rock opera. There's a lot of influence, I think, from the Who's Tommy, even Jesus Christ Superstar, if you will, for rock operas, if you will, when those things were kind of coming about. But this is an album that tells an absolutely amazing story all the way through. There's just some fantastic music. I remember I don't know if you remember Headbangers Ball, Milt, from MTV, when MTV used to do music and stuff. But
it was a while back, yeah, but I kind of remember it from, like, it was a late night thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely late night, but I remember the first time I saw the video for Eyes of a Stranger, and it was like one of the first videos I'd ever saw, which kind of like creeped me out, kind of was like going to like a scary movie kind of thing. And then my buddy was kind of telling me the backstory of what was going on with our main character, Nikki, and things of that nature, right? So I don't want to spoil, kind of how the story goes. I'll let folks, if they want to get it, grab the album, take a look at it. Some fantastic songs. I mentioned, the Eyes of a Stranger's on there. I Don't Believe in Love. I'm sure a lot of folks might have heard that song possibly too on the radio as well. But that was nominated for a Grammy as well. And this came out in May 3rd, 1988, and they did make a sequel to it. And that came out, I believe, in around 2006. See, 2006 was our sequel. And I listened to a little bit of it, but it never impacted me the way that Operation Mindcrime definitely did. Just one of my favorites. I'm really happy that it's on the list here tonight. And if you get a chance, check it out.
Yeah, good deal. Thanks a lot, Dawg, for that. I'm not really a fan or a listener to heavy metal, so I'm not really familiar with any kind of Queensryche albums. I remember they had one song called Silent Lucidity, I believe, right? That was a little later. Yeah, a little bit later. So, but maybe it's not as it's not as cool as some of the early stuff. But I mean, it sounded good, and the guy had a good voice, and it was like twin guitars. Is that right? It's like two lead guitars.
He had the double axe guitar. They're just absolutely amazing musicians. Yeah. If you get a chance, at least listen to the opener where you hear the Revolution X song, and just the rat-a-tat-tat of the drums going, and then I think Jeff Tate is his name, if I remember right. Forgive me if I'm wrong, and I know his first name's Jeff. But just absolutely one of the greatest vocalists of all time, I'd say.
Yeah, awesome. And again, guys, thanks a lot for coming out here. And I just want to say a special welcome to Bridge 4, because he did buy 2 of my t-shirts. And remember that if you go ahead in my Teespring store and buy some of my merchandise, you will actually get shouted out in the chat. Anyway, so let's do my 15, why don't we? And my 15 is from the mid-90s. It's none other than the Wallflowers, okay? And that is with the lead singer was Jacob Dylan, the son of Bob Dylan. And I love this album. When I was my first enter college, I listened to this album quite a bit. And great stuff, really, really good memories. In fact, one of my strongest memories was a song from this album, 6th Avenue Heartache. This is a really classic 90s album here. And, good music, good 90s pop, if you will. And, you had Jacob Dylan, so you can't basically go against his bloodlines there. And I just love this album, I was just going through my CD rack, or my CD box, if you will, when I was actually preparing this stream here, and I saw this album here. Goes, wow, man, this thing brought back a lot of memories. So here it is, the Wallflowers, and it's really well used, and from start to finish, very, very strong. The first side, of course, is classic. Like the first 6 songs is completely wild. So, it was, it's pure heaven. So go ahead and check it out. It's feel good music. It'll make you happy and sad sometimes.
I'm definitely gonna check it out because the last time when we did this, that was some of my favorite stuff. Was some of the albums that you were sharing with me. Some of them that I hadn't heard and things of that nature. I know I've heard the Wallflowers before, but it's one of those bands where I can't picture song with titles and things of that nature right now. But I know it wasn't a band that I was going, oh man, turn that off. It sounds like Justin Bieber or something, right? So that wasn't happening there. So I remember there was definitely an awesome sounding production. The first time I had heard the Wallflowers. So
and DA says with one headlight. Anyway, it's good stuff. And that was a great song, great video. So check it out, guys. The Wallflowers. Okay, and we're gonna go to Dawg's number 14.
And this is folks. I would say when I think of the word classic rock, this album just pops right in my head. When I think of 1970s classic rock and roll, you want to know what that genre is all about, pick up this album right here, Boston's debut album. Came out on April 25th, 1976. First released in Cleveland, Ohio, the home of rock and roll, folks. So just an absolutely, you have, just all the way through this album, just top-notch production. The vocalist Brad Delp was just completely outstanding. Tom Schultz was Tom Schultz throughout the whole album. You have classic songs like More Than a Feeling on there, Peace of Mind, Hitch a Ride, Smokin', rock and roll bands on here, right? And then they absolutely, it's just an epic album. And then when you get down to the end of it, right, you get Foreplay and Long Time, right? I think that's probably my favorite, Boston tune is I would be like, play Foreplay and Long Time. Just, that whole epicness of all the instruments coming together and everything. And then, then Long Time, just a fantastic song. So one of my favorite bands of all time too. I was very happy that I did get a chance to see them in Camden, New Jersey, I think around 1995, possibly, right across from the Walt Whitman Bridge, at a little arena outside there. So they played for like 3 hours. It was fantastic to see them. And that's my number 14 here, Milt, is Boston's debut album.
More Than a Feeling. Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, and a little bit of trivia for everybody is that Boston's album is actually the top debut album by a band in recorded history, music history. It was this album here, their debut album. So, which is quite an achievement considering, how many albums by bands that have been in history that they would be the top, or they would be the best selling debut of all time. So yeah, I love this album, and get ready for more Boston later on, guys. And my number 14, okay, I am stepping out of the world of rock and roll into jazz because now I got a little bit of breathing room, unlike last time. And my number 14 album, for anybody out there, is an album called Love Scenes by Diana Krall. Okay, she's actually known as Elvis Costello's wife now, believe it or not. Yep, that is his wife. And the reason why I love this album is very minimalistic jazz. It's basically her on the piano with a string bass and drums, and that's it. And she basically played all of the jazz classics, if you will, with this album, and some really, really great renditions of jazz. And also another reason why I love this album so much and I played this album so much was because I used to be kind of like an amateur audiophile where I would go into record stores and buy music equipment and speakers and test out speakers at stores when you were able to do that. And I always bring the CD because the CD is really, really, really well mastered. In fact, this is one of the reference CDs that a lot of people used when they were testing out speakers and subwoofers back in the day. So really good album. You know, again, I've heard it so many times because of all the speakers, all the times I've played it, you know, when I was testing out speakers and whatever. But in terms of just musicianship, it's really good. Again, you know, it's jazz. Okay, not many people out there might know about it as much, but she's really popular in the realm of kind of like jazz pop these days. And I would go check it out, guys. And I want to say hello to Terry T. She bought one of my merchandise on the Teespring store, so she gets shouted out as well. So thanks a lot, Terry, for coming by. And yeah, so my number 14, Love Scenes by Diana Krall, is not a porn movie. It is a natural record album. And go ahead and check it out, guys. It's great. This is really good stuff. So you know, if you want to step out the rock and roll world into jazz, you know, it's very accessible. Go for it. I would highly recommend this album.
I got it written down and circled. Again, this is another one where I think I've heard her name prior to this, but I didn't know about the Elvis Costello marriage and things of that nature. I will definitely going to be checking this album out as well, as Milt is no joke with his music taste. I assure you. Thank
you, Dawg. And let's go to Dawg, number 13.
All right, folks, and you know, I love the Rolling Stones, and I just couldn't figure out what my favorite album is out of all their freaking albums, man. But yeah, I think today I'm definitely, it's Sticky Fingers. So Sticky Fingers is definitely my favorite Rolling Stones album of all time. I believe it was their 9th album. Came out in April of 1971. So I think originally I was thinking it was 1970, but I went and backtracked and looked, and just a lot of great songs on here, right? I mean, it starts out with Brown Sugar. You have Sister Morphine's on there, and Dead Flowers, and some other classics too. I can't think off the top of my head right now, but I was listening to it last night all the way through, and just blown out of the water again with it. And yeah, I have to say this is definitely my favorite of the Stones albums. Does it have my favorite Rolling Stones songs on it per se, which, you know, maybe not, you know, because there's a lot of Rolling Stones stuff that I like there. I mean, throughout their, you know, ludicrous span that they've, you know, been together and things of that nature, right? But I'd say out of the, you know, the one album that I can play front to back all the way through is this album right here. So is Sticky Fingers, folks. What do you think of that cover?
It's an Andy Warhol picture, and it was a very controversial cover. That's all I'll say about that.
I'd have to say so. There's a song on there also called "Bitch," and it's a fantastic. I think that's my favorite song on the album, actually.
Yep. Brown Sugar, right? Brown Sugar's on it too, and Wild Horses is on it too. Yeah, I mean, this is a great album, and I mean, I think this was the Stones at their peak. You know, it was between the late '60s and early '70s. They had a run of about like 4 albums, which are like freaking classics, right? I think Beggar's Banquet, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, and Exile on Main Street in a chronological order. And I mean, it was Stones at their raunchiest in the late '60s, early '70s. So you know, it was old time raunchy rock and roll. So this is a great album. I mean, I love this album too, by the way. It's a great choice, Dawg. Yeah. In fact, you know, I would put this and Beggar's Banquet as probably my 2 favorite albums by the Stones. Beggar's Banquet kind of trumps this a little bit, only because there's a certain song on Beggar's Banquet that I really love, and that, you know, that puts it up on top. So I really love that song. So, and they have a lot of bias towards that album because of that one song. So, good stuff. Good stuff here. Awesome. And I just want to say again, hello to everybody in the chat. I was just messing with everybody about, you know, I'll only, you know, give shout outs if you bought some merchandise from my Teespring store. By the way, that's down in the description in the video. So I want to just welcome Bubba, Felicia, OTDA, Living My Rhapsody, Linda R, Terry T, some guy named John W, Bridge 4, The Granite Person, And Cardinal Doomsday, thank you all for coming out and spending your Sunday evening with us tonight as we count down our top 15 favorite albums of all time. And for my number 13, it is none other than Achtung Baby by U2, Felicia's favorite band. And yes, I love this album. This was great. Freshman year in college, this was freaking awesome. Okay, so check it out. Okay, so great songs here. One, she's alright, she moves in mysterious ways. I mean, it's good stuff like that in here. I mean, I saw their concert and I just love this song. I mean, this was actually the first album where U2 kind of strayed into kind of like the pop glamour territory, right? I mean, intentionally or not. Before that, right, they were known as kind of like the Irish revolutionaries, right, if you will, where they sang a lot of political songs, over a variety of different topics, of course, politically. But this was almost pure pop, if you will, from U2. And, I love this album. Very melodic, actually, for a U2 album. Good music, really, really good songwriting. Very, very diverse in its music. So, I don't know. I love this album. Good memories of this album. Saw them in concert. So what can I say? This is a really, really good album. My favorite U2 album and one of my top 15 favorite albums of all time.
What year was that one, Mel? Was that early 90s?
It's sometime in the early 90s. I'm thinking 90. God, I don't remember. 93, 94, something like that. Yeah.
They were one of those bands, like when the Joshua Tree came out, I remember they were like, that was just like a super popular album at the time. And it didn't grab me as much as like the latter stuff, like the stuff that, like off of Achtung, right? So, I liked, that was a band where I liked their latter stuff a little more than some of the, like Sunday Bloody Sunday, of course. I love, that song too as well. And some other stuff they did too. I forgive me right now, but I think I mentioned with another guy once before. Red Hot Chili Peppers was another band like that where I like their latter stuff more than kind of when they first got hit and were popular. But the great pick here, Mel.
And there were kind of like a couple other bands. I think they're actually my top 10 where I do like the latter stuff more than the earlier stuff as well. In general, it seems like everybody always says, the early stuff is a lot better. In a band's career, the early stuff is a lot better because, as they get famous, right, they sell out and start, and stop, making good music or stop caring about making good music anymore. But there are certain bands, I think U2 is one of them, that just basically kept on going. And maybe in a couple of albums, they actually improved a bit. And R.E.M., I think, is another band like that. But anyway, we will continue on because we can talk about those bands later on. So, and number 12, okay? We're getting close to the top 10, people. Getting close to the top 10. And Dawg, what's your number 12?
Yeah, folks, and I'd have to say this is by far, my favorite Elton John album of all time is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Some folks would argue that it's possibly one of the greatest albums of all time, even, right? So it is number 12 on my list. But if I could only take one album of Elton John and you had to throw away all the rest of them, this is the one I would grab. And I'd be like, oh man, I'm missing, some great songs like Take Me to the Pilot. And, he's had a freaking amazing span of music, right? But this album, again, this is, I know I mentioned with Operation Mindcrime and another album I'm going to talk about a little later on the list as well, where I love the epicness of the beginning of A Funeral for a Friend, how it starts out, right? And it's just like, it's actually quite a long album. There's quite a few tracks on this album. The way it starts out, you're getting a whole freaking overture, basically, of just some just rock and roll greatness, right? And I'd say my favorite album, or my favorite track off the album is all the girls love Alice. So when a lot of times when I know I mentioned before when I hear the word classic rock, I think of Boston's debut album. It's one of the things that pops in my head. But when I think of rock and roll, there's some certain songs that pop in my head, and all the girls love Alice is definitely one of them. You know, you have, and then there's the classics that we all know. Of course, you have like Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, Candle in the Wind that we mentioned earlier with the trivia slide, right? So that's also on here as well. So you have Benny and the Jets, of course, Funeral for a Friend, and Love Lies Bleeding, Jamaican Jerk, Off, and Screw You is also a great rock and roll song too. So not to offend anyone. So I'm talking about the Elton John album. So check it out if you've never heard Elton John before, folks. And if you might want to check out Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And the title track is freaking outstanding as well. Of course, that's on this album as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good stuff here, Dawg. I've always thought of Elton John as more of a singles guy. Because he has such a extensive song list, right? And then to me, it just seems like he just does a lot of he writes a lot of good singles. That's how I remember it. And I've never actually listened to an entire Elton John album in its entirety. And this, from what you're saying, is that this is actually a really, really good album where it's really, really consistent. You can actually, actually listen to it and actually appreciate his musical talents in one sitting. So definitely, I would definitely check this one out. Is Tiny Dancer on this one?
No, I'm thinking a Little Genie that's on.
Okay. Because that's my favorite Elton John song is Tiny Dancer.
No, Tiny Dancer's not on this one, I don't think.
All right, yeah. So but the good stuff, and great pick here. Gotta go check out an Elton John album and basically listen through its entirety here. And thanks a lot, everybody, for giving us in the chat what your favorite albums are and favorite songs are. And again, there are no wrong or right answers because music, just like religion, is entirely personal. And you just have to agree to disagree on some of our picks here. So for my number 12 pick, it is none other than early Daryl Hall and John Oates. Okay, we don't call it, real fans don't call it Hall and Oates. Okay, their official name is Daryl Hall and John Oates, and this is from their second album in 1973, I believe, called Abandoned Luncheonette. Okay, this album freaking rocks. Okay, it's blue-eyed soul, if you will, right? So if you had to basically pick two white guys from Philadelphia to sing soul music, it'll be these two, okay? So really, really good stuff, okay? And this is way before their later stuff where they kind of became pop, with like Man-Eater and Private Eyes and that kind of stuff. Okay, this is actually really, really good soul music here. And a couple of tracks, Had I Known You Better Then is great. She's Gone, perfect. Okay, it's a classic song, and Abandoned Luncheonette, the title track is awesome. Is really, really good too. And this is one of these albums where I can just basically play late at night and basically just chill out, okay, and just listen through the entire album. And it'll calm you guys, seriously. It'll seriously calm you guys. And so I would actually, or even like on a rainy day, a rainy Sunday morning, okay, put this album in your CD player and you'll just be chilled, with a cup of coffee. So I love this album. It's not one of their most popular albums, but I believe it's probably their best album. And they are the top selling duo of all time, if you believe that. So they have achieved quite a bit in their careers. And I don't know, I just love this album. So that's my number 12, Abandoned Luncheonette from Daryl Hall and John Oates. And
They're
Bubba, all right, you got it. You have Abandoned Luncheonette on vinyl. That is freaking awesome. Okay, that's freaking awesome. Yeah, this is great album, and Bubba can attest whether or not it's worthy of a number 12 spot.
Yeah, they're fantastic artists. When I think of 80s greatest bands or duos in this case, right? I mean, you know, the Hall & Oates had probably, you know, some of the greatest music that we had during that time as well. So yeah, that's why you love this album, because they're freaking outstanding. What year was this one, Mel? Was this 82?
No, it's like 73.
Okay, yeah, this was like this is the old stuff. Yeah, because I remembered, that stuff like She's Gone, and then like 82, I think came around. You had like Man Eater and Family Man was one of my favorite.
Yeah, and Private Eyes and Out of Touch and everything else in the 80s. Yeah, and Kiss on My List. Remember that one?
They're freaking. That was an awesome time, man, for music. So that was, you know, you had Michael Jackson and Hall & Oates and.
Yeah, I mean, When the Morning Comes, that's the first track in the album. It's fabulous. It's super.
Real quickly, thank you, Terry T. There, Milt. I wanted to mention that too. Have you got a chance to check out that Live from Daryl's House? Mm-hmm. Oh, you have checked it out? Okay, yeah, I definitely checked it out. In fact, check out the one where John Oates actually appears in Live from Daryl's House, because they actually play. They actually play a track from this album called "Had I Known You Better Then." Check it out on YouTube. "Had I Known You Better Then," Live from Daryl's House, and John Oates actually appears, and they jammed at this song. It's awesome. So in Live from Daryl's House, they actually played 2 songs, for each guest, and they played this song to begin with, "Had I Known You Better Then," and they played "Possession Obsession" towards at the end. So. Another great song, "Possession Obsession," by the way. John Oates actually sings lead in that one, So anyway, great stuff. Hall & Oates, man, or real name Daryl Hall and John Oates. Number 12. Awesome sauce.
All right, and we are getting into our number 11 spot. And Dawg, what is it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. This came so close to being in my top 10 before, but just over time and things of that nature. But I'll never ever forget this album. This is the one that I know we saw a lot of other than the Operation Mindcrime there too, but I had a lot of classic rock and stuff like that. But this is where I started kind of breaking into that heavy metal layer, if you will, was from this album that came out in 1983. I'd say it's my favorite Def Leppard album of all time. I like the other On Through the Night, High and Dry, Hysteria, some of it still, but this album is the one I can just pick up and listen to all the way through. Mm-hmm. A lot of the latter stuff that the group did wasn't my cup of tea, if you will. But at the time, folks, these were my Beatles, right? I mean, Joe Elliott and Steve Collin or Phil Collin and Rick, what's his name or whatever, and then there's the other Rick, Rick Allen and Rick Savage. Pardon me, it's been a long time since I remember those guys' names here too. So Steve Clark, who also had passed away, also was fantastic. Yeah. But you had Phil Collin had replaced Pete Willis for this album when Pete had his issues going on. So it starts out with Rock 2 Drop, and I mean, hold on to your head, hold on to your heart, ready, get set. We're going to tear this place apart. Don't need a ticket, only place in town, right?
Photograph. I don't want your. Anyway, it's good stuff, and I think this was the album, and right after this album was recorded, right? The drummer lost his right arm or something like that.
Yeah, Rick Allen at the time had lost his, and they took a hiatus for about 4 years. Mm-hmm. It took him about 4 years before I think 1987 might have been. I might be a little. I want to say there was 4 years in between. Okay. I think it was around 87 when Hysteria was released.
I love Hysteria, by the way. I think Hysteria is my favorite Def Leppard album.
There was like 7 tracks off of Hysteria that were like released to the radio or whatever, and then even the B-sides were fantastic too. Even on this song too, there's a lot of tracks that folks might not have heard on the radio, like Billy's Got a Gun, Die Hard, The Hunters on here as well. I mean, and then there's the classics like Rock of Ages, of course, and Foolin', but A Photograph was, I think that was the highest single that that hit the Billboard. Might have got to like maybe number 2. I know the album got to number 2.
Okay.
And I'll probably talk about the albums that were at number 1. That's why this album didn't particularly get to number 1 on the Billboard, but it was number 2 for a long time. So, but yeah, I love this album.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, man, Def Leppard rocked. So I would love to see these guys in concert in their prime. I'm sure they would have been like freaking fabulous and just freaking awesome. Yeah. So good stuff. So last one before we hit our top 10. Okay. And if you watched our streams from last time, this was number 10, but I had to bump this album down to number 11 because, I broke open the CD box, that was packed away when I was doing the stream, and, I found some other CDs that I really wanted to put in there. So my number 11 pick, all right, is none other than In My Tribe by 10,000 Maniacs. Okay. I'm not sure, Dawg, if you've listened to it since then, but this is a fabulous album here. 10,000 Maniacs was actually Natalie Merchant's old band. Came out sometime in the late 80s, but I was listening to this stuff. I first listened to this stuff back in the 2000s. And this is a really, really good album here. A few of the songs is actually politically driven here. And they actually did a remake of one of the Cat Stevens songs, like A Peace Train, which is a very, very, very interesting remake. There's actually a story behind that, by the way. But yeah, I love this album. Again, very, very melodic pop, if you will. Guitar driven, it's kind of jangly in a way, but Natalie Merchant's great. She has that really, really, really distinctive and wonderful voice that actually makes you feel good when you actually listen to it. Hey Jack Kerouac, Anyway, yeah, it's it's my number 11 because my criteria for my top albums is kind of like how it evokes emotions to me and how it evokes memories, and this album certainly evoked a lot of memories like the Wallflowers album did. So this is love this album. It's great, and had it top 10 last time, but unfortunately it goes number 11 this time. But it doesn't say it's not a great album because it surely is a good album.
Fantastic pick here, Milton. Yes, I was able to listen through this album again, and I love Natalie Merchant to death. I remembered when we prepared for our last one, and I think we were able to share a little bit of the music, or I was able to hear your stuff because I was the host, right? So I knew what was coming. So, it brought me back, listening to Natalie Merchant again. I hadn't heard her voice in so long, and I was like ashamed of myself because she is. I think there's like just a handful of that I consider maybe the greatest women's, female vocalist of all time, even men too, of course. But Natalie Merchant is one of the greatest vocalists of all time, man or woman, however you want to say it. So I think I might mention another vocalist with the next slide, possibly where those two are just kind of neck and neck a lot of times with me. But she'll make you well up. Her voice will absolutely make you well up. All
right. So we're done with our first third, and we're getting into our top 10 now. And here it is, top 10, guys. Starting with Dawg at number 10. What is it?
And this is my favorite Fleetwood Mac album of all time. It might be a lot of other folks' favorite album of all time as well too. Just absolutely classic all the way through. It's Rumors here, folks, for me. And then of course the vocalist I was going to mention is Stevie Nicks, who I believe is it's between her and Natalie Merchant a bit there as far as, but Stevie Nicks will sometimes make me just ball up like a little baby. So Stevie Nicks is probably my favorite female vocalist ever. Again here, this came out in February of 1977. And over 40 million copies have been sold of this album here, right? You have a lot of classic tunes on here like Dreams and Gold Dust Woman's on here, of course. Don't Stop. I'm trying to think of some of the tracks that are on here, but this is one where you can just go all the way through the whole entire album. And I love the contribution because from all the vocalists at their peak time, right? You had Christy McVie and Lindsey Buckingham just giving it his absolute all on this. Stevie Nicks, and even with all the little issues and all the things that are going on with the band and all that, what came out of all that craziness that was going on behind the scenes was one of the greatest albums of all time. Rumors here. So I wanted to, it was Album of the Year in 1978. So it won the Grammy for Album of the Year. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss any other big notes here. I know we were kind of pushing through here, but John McVie was the man who came up with the title of Rumors because of, again, what was kind of happening behind the scenes with the band and things of that nature. But one of my favorite albums of all time, and one of my favorite bands of all time too, is Fleetwood Mac. So
yeah,
this album, if you've never heard Fleetwood Mac before and you're like, I've never heard Fleetwood Mac before, pick up this album and give it a spin and check it out. Yeah,
Stevie Nicks looked pretty hot in this album cover here. And you can go your own way is another single off it, by Lindsey Buckingham, which really rocks here. Hey, Dawg, have you ever listened to Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac? It was like their first rendition of Fleetwood Mac, where they're a lot more blues based. Because like this is like kind of like the third. The Stevie Nicks, Lindsey Buckingham kind of Fleetwood Mac was kind of like their third version of Fleetwood Mac.
Right.
The first version was actually with a guy named Peter Green, and he was like a friggin' awesome guitarist.
Yeah, I think they met. I want to say Stevie and Lindsey were together, and then they met them in like San Francisco or something like that.
Yeah, or L.A. I think it was like an L.A. or something like that. Yeah. But check out some of the early Fleetwood Mac with Peter Green. It's a lot more blues based, and a really famous song is called Albatross, and it's like an instrumental that actually hit number one. Can you believe it? An instrumental hitting number one. That's one of them, Albatross. So
that's funny. Bubba just mentioned Secondhand News, and as I'm looking at this cover, that's the song that's fiddling around in my head right now is the opening track, I believe. So
yeah, I'm trying to remember that song now. Yeah, good. So good pick. I mean, Rumors, really popular album, right? I mean, it's sold a whole hell of a lot of albums, I think. So it was on number one for a really long time. So my number 10, okay, it is second album from the band, titled The Band. Okay, so again, this is a really rocking album here. Basically, the band was actually started out as a kind of like with a guy named Ronnie Hawkins, and later on, when Bob Dylan became Electric, the band, these guys were his backing band when he first became Electric. So it's really good story here. Robbie Robertson, Levon Helm, Garth Hudson, Richard Manuel, and a guy named Rick Danko. And I actually saw Rick Danko when I was at the University of Texas. He was really old back then, kind of overweight, and he was basically doing what he can do to survive, right? Because back then the musicians weren't paid that much, or they were getting ripped off from from record publishing companies or their own bandmates, and he needed money, so he was basically touring the cottage scene, and basically I was able to get he was basically playing in the University Commons of all places in a really small stage, but he played all the hits here, he played all the band songs, and it's that was a really good memory for me, and but besides that, the music itself speaks for itself here. I mean, this is good old late 60s early 70s classic rock here at its finest, and it just rocks. It's like the precursor to southern rock, if you will, in a way. So what do you think, Dawg?
I love this album. This was another one that I listened to all the way front to back that you'd shared with me, and I was just blown out. I had heard The Weight, of course, and I had heard Up on Cripple Creek, but I had not heard the rest, and how awesome of an album is. I know TGP's in there, big music fan. If you get a chance, check this album out. if you like rhythm sections and rock and roll music and that just that kind of rock and roll and bluesish feel kind of coming together, it's just an awesome album. I think this might have been one of my favorites that you shared with me.
Yeah.
Well, I think your number one was probably my favorite of all of them, because your number one was pretty outstanding too as well, if I remember right. But
yeah, and in my opinion, which doesn't really mean anything because I'm no expert, because again, music is all subjective anyway. I love this album. It's like this band was probably like the best band ever, best rock and roll band ever in terms of musicianship and in terms of how tight they played with one another. I mean, it was perfect. I mean, three lead singers here, and it's just the level of musicianship was. And how they play, it was just so tight, and that was it's a great album and a great band. So that's all I'll say.
Outstanding pick.
All right, number 9.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're on number 9. Number 9.
Number 9.
Mine is toys in the attic. Toys in the attic. Oh, sorry. But yeah, this is my favorite Aerosmith album of all time. I don't even know if I did a top 10 bands of all time, would Aerosmith even make my top 10 favorite bands of all time. But this is just one of the now I know I've mentioned a lot of words, associations with things like classic rock and roll, and I think there was something like rock opera, things of that nature, rock and roll in general, right? When I think of vinyl, this is the first vinyl that just pops in my head. As I remember this cover as a little kid, and I just wanted to jump inside that toy box and just hop in there. This album is just fun rock and roll all the way through it, right? I don't know if there's a lot of super deep artistic meaning to a lot of it's just fun rock and roll all the way through the album. So you have like Uncle Salty's on there. I think Adam and Eve or something. Big 10-inch is on there as well. Sweet Emotion, of course, one of my favorite songs of all time, right? I think it's in my top 3 favorite songs of all time as well. So just some great tracks. If you've never heard Aerosmith before, they've had this is another band that we've had a long span of music to search from and things of that nature. I would say, you know what, check out Toys in the Attic first before anything else, and see if you like that. This was one of those bands where I mentioned before, Milt, where like say U2, right, or Red Hot Chili Peppers, I like their latter stuff later, better. This was one of those bands where that was not the case, right? Right when they got to about that Armageddon movie and things of that nature, I was kind of out on Aerosmith. I think after the Pump, Pump was the last album I kind of I'd purchased. There's Permanent Vacation was a fantastic album too, but again, this is the one that has the most emotional heart to me and things of that nature. One of the more fun albums too, I think, is Toys in the Attic here. So just making April 8th, 1975, folks. So Dawg was a little 3-year-old dog at the time. I'd have been about 3 years old when this one was released. So, but I totally remember this vinyl cover. It's one of my all-time favorites. So, another band that I think we might hear possibly later on, right? REM had done a cover of Toys in the Attic, as well. So on a B side of a Fall on Me, I think it was. So, but other than that, 8 million copies were sold. Of course, you had the 1986 Run DMC Walk This Way.
Walk This Way.
So that's also on this track. But there's just a great rock and roll album, I think so. But respect to Aerosmith.
Oh yeah, and what something, Dawg, is like, I mean, I'm having this like deja vu with the same as with Elton John earlier, where I always thought of Aerosmith as like kind of a singles band in a way, right? Where they basically just pop up, just basically singles after singles after singles. But I mean, I've actually never listened to a full Aerosmith album before, so So I have to go check this out. Thanks for putting this in the list because it seems like it seemed like
I'm
this
not
could be a good
embarrassed
fun time.
to share this one with you either. You know how sometimes you might be like,
Yeah.
you know what, my friend doesn't like that. You know, it might not be for him, but this one, I think you're gonna like it, Milt. I do.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and true story here. One of my coworkers, he's from Boston, right? And his mom was evidently the high school girlfriend of Steven Tyler, if you can believe that. No joke, serious. That's what he said. And basically, she dumped him because he was like a weirdo back in high school. So, and I guess his life could have been so much different, right? Well, my coworker's life could have been so much different if, in fact, they actually stayed together and got married. But that is a story for another day. But it is a true story, evidently. So there you go. Shout out to Adam. So number nine on my list is I'm an alligator. Yep, it's none other than The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars by none other than David Bowie. And who doesn't like this album? Seriously. If you listen to this album, you cannot not like this album. I mean, this is such a classic album for the 70s, and it's all the songs here are great. I mean, I don't think there is one weak song in this entire album here. Seriously. I mean, it goes end to end. You know, it's, you know, there's actually kind of like a little theme to it, right? I mean, it's not exactly like a rock opera like, you know, some other album that we might get to later on, but it's definitely has a common thread to it and a common theme to it. And yeah, I mean, this was David Bowie at the height of his powers here, guys. You know, where he turned into a spaceman essentially, right? And it's I mean, I love this album. I mean, I can keep playing this over and over again. You know, if I see this thing on top of the pile on my CD list, yeah, I mean, I'll be playing this. You know, because it's such a, you know, it has such a great list of tracks here. You know, 5 Years, So Loved, right? The second song, Moon Age Daydream, right? Goes on and on. Lady Stardust, you know, Suffragette, you know, City, Ziggy Stardust, you know. So anyway, Rock and Roll Suicide, one of the best closing songs ever, you know, on an album. You gotta listen to Rock and Roll Suicide if you want to get depressed, guys. So it's yeah. Great album, wonderful album. I love this thing so much. So, and it's my number 9, Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
Absolutely outstanding choice here, Milton. This is another one that I had heard tracks of from it prior to, but this is one of those albums I had never listened to the whole thing through before. So I had a blast listening to this album all the way through, of course, too. I think Genie. It's not on this album, I don't think, but that's probably my favorite David Bowie song, just to throw that out there. But yeah, I love this album all the way through, man. So fantastic pick. I totally see why it's on there. So outstanding production, and you know that's what I love about David Bowie too, is that there are some bands like that have fun with kind of with their lyrics and things of that nature, but he was just a complete artist as far as like with the lyrics and things of that nature, right? And it wasn't about your everyday guy trying to get with girl or something like that, or a guy brokenhearted over girl, or girl brokenhearted over guy, or however that works, right? They were different. They were original. It was originality to it involved. A little more artistry in the artist, if you will. That for lack of a better term here, Milt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sure the drugs helped a lot too with that kind of stuff back then in the 70s.
Possibly.
So anyway, but this is I mean, again, really good album, guys. If you guys want to get an introduction to David Bowie, I would highly recommend this album being the first in your introduction to him as an artist. And number 8, Dawg, take it away.
Number 8, folks, is this is and one of my rules when I was making my list was I couldn't pick the same band twice and things of that nature too, right? And I wanted to definitely show that I loved heavy metal, through that time span of things of that nature, right? But if I had one album, right, and like let's just say Milt was an alien from Planet Game of Thrones or something, right? And
a illegal alien, I hope. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll call it Planet Westeros because that makes more sense here for the title of his name here. So let's say he came up and said, "Hey, Dawg, what the hell is heavy metal? What is heavy metal, right?" And again, folks, I would hand him this album and say, "Here, buddy, this is heavy metal. Give it a spin and see if you like this. If you like it, I think you might be a heavy metal type of person that might like heavy metal." So a lot of Judas Priest fans, the hardcore Judas Priest fans, are probably going to disagree with me on my pick here. They're probably going to go with British Steel, which was their UK release prior to this album that came out in, I want to say, 82. Yeah, 82 is this album, and I think British Steel was 81 or 80. I might be wrong on that also, but just the opening track, Electric Eye, is just absolutely sick. That song is how you should start a heavy metal album out, right? If you want an example of how to start out a heavy metal album, Electric Eye is the absolute perfect beginning to a heavy metal album here, right? And then just all the way through this album, the title track's freaking amazing as well. But it's just grab onto your seat, man, and get ready to go for a ride. I think I mentioned in our prior stream that they had the song that a lot of folks have probably heard on the radio is "You Got Another Thing Coming."
Yep. Right,
but that track was actually kind of added in, and it kind of feels that way as you're kind of listening through this album. It's a great song. Don't get me wrong. I love the song. It's one of my favorites on the album, actually, right? But when you listen to the other songs compared to that particular song, it just kind of feels like you can see where, it was kind of shoehorned in a little bit, for lack of a better term. But this album is freaking kick-ass, folks, all the way through. So, and again, if I was going to introduce somebody to heavy metal, I would say here, take a look at Judas Priest, "Screaming for Vengeance," and that is my number 8, Mel.
You got another thing coming. Yeah. Did I ever tell you the story about how I was introduced to Judas Priest?
I'm sorry, Mel, I did miss.
Did I ever tell you the story about how I was introduced to Judas Priest?
No, I did not. I'm sure we would.
Okay, guys. So let Uncle Milty tell you guys a story about how he was introduced to Judas Priest. Okay, in high school, right? I mean, you have a clique called the Smokers, right? And they always hang out in the smoking section, right? And they were the guys that had like these old beat up cars, or pickups, and basically look, basically stoned or drunk or whatever all day long. Or I mean, they didn't attend classes, right? They just kind of hung out in the smoking section, right? So anyway, one day when I was walking out, back from practice, because I was kind of involved in athletics back then, I saw these guys, basically doing donuts, in the school parking lot, right? It was empty, where it was more empty than not, because it was like at 5 o'clock in the evening after practice, and they're just doing donuts, right, all around the parking lot, screaming, "Judas Priest, fucking Judas Priest," just blasting it the whole time, just making these donuts. So that was my introduction to Judas Priest. So the thing was though is that I didn't listen to Judas Priest back then because I had no idea what they were, what it was, because I think the speakers in their car, in the pickup truck, was blown, right? So I didn't even know what kind of music was playing. Then I heard about them, and I heard about the whole thing of Judas Priest and that one song, which allegedly caused that one kid in New Jersey to kill himself or something like that, right? And there was a big hoopla about that, right? I think that one song and the news that generated from that incident basically caused a lot of the labeling to come on albums, right? I
remember that time. Yeah. I'm trying to remember exactly what album. I remember Painkiller being they had actually even gotten even heavier than, like, say, this album. Like, if you listen to even their latter stuff, I mean, there's some just some crazy. Rob Halford is probably one of the greatest. He is one of the greatest. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. He is one of the greatest vocalists of all time. Rob Halford of this band. So if nothing else, just to hear his voice. But their latter stuff is so hard and things of that nature. And I can't remember when I do remember when that was happening, and I'm trying to remember if those lyrics were from some past songs, like from the Turbo Lover album. I can't remember which one that was, but it might have been off the Painkiller album also. But I definitely remember when that was going on, and Tipper Gore and all that craziness was happening too. And
and I think there's such news about it that and a lot of the parents groups all of a sudden getting worried that their kids are listening to headbanger music, right? And then you had all these labels on albums popping out saying that warning, there are explicit language or violent language on this album, and I think part of it stems from this band, believe it or not, and the news that it generated. Again, I don't know much about heavy metal, so I actually haven't listened to heavy metal, much if at all, but. Would you recommend this as being somebody's first introduction to heavy metal? This particular
Definitely.
album?
This is I guarantee you this is in Johnny Lawrence's playlist now. Guarantee you that.
Okay, yeah. But is it in
Johnny Lawrence listens to this?
But is it in Daniel's playlist?
Maybe Bananarama's probably in his playlist, but I doubt Judas Priest.
Yeah, but they both like REO Speedwagon, right?
That is true. There's that coming together moment in there where know what, that is a good point where you have Judas Priest on one side and then the other, and they kind of blend in, and we get REO.
Yeah, it seems like though that REO is probably about as hard edged as Daniel LaRusso will ever get, though, right? It's probably REO.
He's gonna ride the storm out.
Yeah. All right, good pick, dog. Number 8, Judas Priest, fucking Judas Priest. So my number 8 is Oasis. Okay, from the mid '90s. Okay, and who doesn't like Oasis? Probably a lot of people don't. But I love these guys. Okay, these guys spearheaded the kind of like the '90s renaissance of like Britpop, right? They owed a lot of their influence to the Beatles, which is one of my favorite bands. And this was their debut album, okay? And again, it's one of these albums where from the first track to the last track, it's just really, really consistent and really, really good songwriting here. And it was basically fronted by two brothers, right? Noel Gallagher was the guitarist and the main songwriter, and Liam Gallagher was the lead singer and the attitude of the band, if you will. But they were this was they were a great band, and this was kind of almost like a revolutionary album in a way, because before these guys came on, right, 90s music was all about grunge in the early 90s, right? Then these guys came in, all of a sudden it became British pop again, a revival of British pop, if you will, and grunge basically died after that, then we won't talk about what happens after British pop, because that's rather forgettable. But this is a great album. And when I was young, it's a classic still. And I don't play this as much as I should play it, because maybe it's a little bit dated, if you will. But again, it's one of these things where it's on my list because of the memories it evokes, and I might play it, tonight just to check it out, because there's some really great songs in here. Rock and Roll Star is like a fucking classic, right? Then you got Live Forever, and which is actually about John Lennon, and Digsby Diner. Some really good stuff like that. So anyway, I love this album. Check it out, guys. If you're into more of the British pop kind of spectrum of musical tastes, and really hard driving. Their music is really, they almost create like a wall of sound, if you will, with their music, and it could be really appealing to certain people. It was appealing to me when I was younger, and yeah, I'm gonna have to go and basically listen to this again. So yeah, number 8, definitely maybe Oasis. Check it out.
Oh yeah, awesome pick here, Mel. Again, this was a band that I was like, the first time you'd mentioned them to me, I couldn't remember their songs and stuff like that. But yeah, when I first checked them out, like I was searching around on YouTube, I was like, holy wow, there's a lot of people. Like you mentioned, there's probably some people that don't like them. There's a hell of a lot of people that do like them, though. Because I was like, holy, you look at their likes and views, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But yeah, you can definitely tell. Just out the production value, right? It definitely puts some meaning into those words, right? When you hear the words production value, I think this would be an example of top of the line production value. Some of the tracks that I heard anyway. So outstanding choice here. I can definitely see why it's on your list to share with us here tonight, Mel, for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, DA just said Supersonic. Yeah, I mean, Supersonic was an awesome song. It's it's number 6 on this album here, and yeah, I mean, this is a really good album, guys. You guys should check it out if you're into more of a pop rock kind of edge in your musical tastes here. Yeah, what can I say, man? Oasis rocks. So let's go to number 7, top 7, and Dawg, take it away.
Yeah, folks, this is one of my favorite albums, obviously of all time. Obviously, it made my list, right? So, is Quiet Riot's Metal Health. Again, there was, I think I mentioned with the Judas Priest how I had said, hey, if you'd never knew what heavy metal was, I would hand you the Judas Priest album, right? And then if you ever came up to me and said, hey, what was the hair band genre, and what was that all about? What was their music like, right? I would hand you this album and tell you, yes, this is the Bible of the hair band albums right here. Is Quiet Riot's Metal Health that came out in 1983. 1983, I think. Let me check my notes. I was trying to not have to check my notes, but yep, March 11th, 1983 here, folks. So it actually replaced, it was the first heavy metal album to ever reach number 1 on the Billboard charts. So it replaced another album that I'm going to mention in the future. But this was one of the albums that was the reason why Pyromania didn't quite break into the number 1 here. But this album had the track "Come On, Feel the Noise," which was like super popular, and it still is super popular today. And it's probably my least favorite track on the album, I would have to say. If I do skip any tracks, which I don't skip any tracks pretty much on this album anymore, but that was the one song I would skip, and I would listen to the rest of the album all the way start to finish. I love the title track, of course, Metal Health. Breathless is one of my favorites. Thunderbird, Battle Axe, Let's Get Crazy is another freaking outstanding song, just to name some of the tracks here. Yeah, that's a little later. Vogue's Wild. We'll get Wild, Wild, Wild. I think I might have been a few years after them, but yeah, like Quiet Riot 2 and Quiet Riot 3 had some good stuff too. If you get a chance to check out. As I remember, like The Wild and the Young and Main Attraction were a couple of my favorites, Quiet Riot tunes. But yeah, if I had to pick one of my my favorite hair band album of all time, it's Quiet Riot's Metal Health here, and it was a big genre in my life. I had to pick out one album. This is it, Mel.
Come on, feel the noise. Yeah, that's the only song I know from these guys. So it just shows you the extent of my knowledge.
Movie, right?
What?
You remember the Rustler movie with Mickey Rourke?
Yeah.
That was his entrance music, was Metal Health.
It was?
Axe grinder, pile driver.
I didn't even know that, because the only song I know from these guys is "Come On, Feel the Noise." So whatever happened to these guys? I mean, so whatever happened to these guys? Did they go on for bigger and better things, or did
I want to say somebody passed away recently. Okay. I might be wrong on that, and forgive me. I'm gonna have to check that. Matter of fact, I got them on here. Slick Black Cadillac's one of my favorite songs on there too, and then that's followed by Battle Axe, which is like an instrumental guitar. Was it Kevin DeBrau passed away?
I don't know. It was either like the lead singer.
I know they were touring around for a bit, and I want to say we lost somebody, but I might have that mistaken with another band. I'm kind of checking into that right now for you, but they were touring around doing like some little bar shows and things of that nature for a bit, and yeah, okay, here we go. Randy Rhoads. Okay. Oh yeah, Thunderbird was a tribute to Randy Rhoads. I remember that when Randy Rhoads passed from Ozzy Osbourne. They had did the Thunderbird song, and that was a tribute to Randy Rhoads. So if, for any Randy Rhoads fans, if you've never heard that track, might want to check it out. Yeah. Okay. So that's all I have. So I might have had that mixed up. I think Kevin DeBrau might be still alive, folks.
Okay. Dog's your resource for all things heavy metal. And that guy on the cover, everybody, he was the precursor to Hannibal Lecter. And my number 7 is none other than Running on Empty. None other than Jackson Browne, okay? And sorry about the picture with the 10,000 Maniacs there in the lower hand corner. That was supposed to be Jackson Browne here, but this is probably my favorite live album of all time, okay? And I had to put this guy on here because this is a classic album. If you're cruising 400 miles in the middle of freaking Texas, okay, on a late summer day, okay, driving from Houston back to California, guess what album's going to be on? This album here. I mean, this is such a good live album. And in fact, it's a great album in general here, okay? All the classics are here. Now, Running on Empty, The Road, The Loadout, Stay, Cocaine, everything's on here.
Running all around my brain.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Why don't you stay? Yeah, anyway, yeah, so this is a really, really good live album, and the way that this was recorded was that each of these songs was actually recorded in a different live venue. You can believe that, so which made it pretty cool in a way. And again, all the songs were great. This was Jackson Browne in his heyday. I mean, he's not as popular anymore, obviously, but if you haven't heard of him. But back in the 70s, I mean, him and James Taylor and those other guys, the Eagles, all that kind of like that country rock genre. I mean, he was one of the spearheads for the country rock genre back in the 70s. And but this is, I mean, I still play this album right when I'm driving on long drives because it's such a easy album to listen to when you're driving to, and it's just good background music. And besides being a background, besides I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way as being good background music, but it's very, very enjoyable. I mean, that's, you want your background music to be enjoyable, obviously. So I mean, I love this album. I mean, and it wasn't on the list last time, but I made sure to put it on the list this time because this is really, really good album, and you guys should really check this out if you guys haven't checked it out before. Jackson Browne, Running on Empty.
Definitely spun this record quite a few times as well, Melda. Fantastic pick here. I'm kind of ashamed I didn't actually put this on my list. Kind of thinking.
Oh, really?
Kind of forgot about it, man. But this is what's great about this is we get to talk about music tonight, and I get to go back and listen to some of this just outstanding artist Jackson Browne is too.
Yeah.
So I noticed Vogg's in there mentioned Somebody's Baby from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Now I'm thinking about going to watch that film again.
yeah, and that was from Lawyers in Love, that album there. But I mean,
right?
Up
and down this whole entire album, you can just play it through, just riding or just chilling or whatever.
Exactly.
Check out some music here, folks. So just outstanding.
Exactly. No, and again, it was probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, live rock and roll album of all time. If you want live music, check it out. It's really, really good. It's really, really good. And so So I'm glad he's back on the list. Good old JB. And we're getting close to our top 5, Dog. We are getting close to our top 5
now?
Almost. We are on number 6, Dog. And why don't you tell the good people what number 6 is on your list?
And my number 6 album, folks, is I think arguably the greatest 80s band of all time. Maybe not, right? But I'm going to tell you folks right now, there was a time when the Police were the greatest band that was going at the time, right? I mean, they were the freaking best, out there at the time, right? And this album was, possibly the reason for that. There's just some outstanding music all the way through. If you're a Sting fan and the Police, and or if you've never heard of the Police, but you've like, yeah, what's that band, the Police, like? I would say, pick up this album, check it out. Even if you're not a Police fan, but you've never heard this album, possibly, maybe check this album out, and it's just outstanding. So it was on the Billboard list of like I mentioned, Quiet Riot knocked. It was this album was the one that Quiet Riot knocked off the number 1 spot, but it had been on the number 1 spot for quite a long time. It was released in June of 1983. Another reason why Def Leppard probably didn't get into the number 1 list, and Thriller was out, of course, too, around that time too, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Thriller was on the number 1 spot
forever. For at least 2 years.
I think this one sold like 8 million copies, like really quick as well too. It was inspired by The Roots of Coincidence by Arthur Koestler. If anybody's familiar with that kind of philosophy, things of that nature. But that was my main note here. I was like, at one time the Police were the biggest band in the world, and this album all the way through. I love the title track. Even when you get to the flip side, and I think you have Synchronicity Part 2. Both Synchronicity 1 and 2 are outstanding. There's a list of 4 of some of my favorite songs of all time, like Wrapped Around Your Finger and King of Pain. Every Breath You Take It on there, of course. There's like 4 that are like, I think and Synchronicity 2 on there too. But there's also some other types where it kind of shifts a little bit, kind of gets in that jazzy blues sound. We were mentioning earlier, Milt.
Yeah.
Again, if you've never heard the whole album, Synchronicity, I would highly recommend it, and you might see why it was, Grammy winner and all that kind of stuff, and why it was ridiculous for a time span. So one of my favorites of all time, the Police.
Yep. There's a little black spot on the sun today. It's a great album from the 1980s. And the thing about the 80s was interesting was the fact that I guess in this time period you had all these big blockbuster albums, right? It started with Michael Jackson, right, with Thriller. Then you had Synchronicity. Then right after this, I think then Bruce Springsteen came out with Born in the USA, right?
1984.
Yeah, exactly. On that 3 or 4 year period with just big blockbuster albums, and this was one of those blockbuster albums. And it was really a good time in music, actually. And Lionel Richie was really big too, right? I think he had a big album back then too.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, but it's
what a feeling when we're dancing on the ceiling.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, 80s were a great time in music, and it's one of my favorite periods, So, and if not my favorite period of music, so or the 90s. But anyway, some really good songs here, really classic songs. Every Breath You Take, right? I think you mentioned that King of Pain, Synchronicity too. I mean, really cool videos and. Springboard to it was a springboard of Sting's career, right? I think Sting made that movie Dune. Remember, he appeared in the movie Dune around this time. So a little bit of trivia. There's been a lot of Dune news lately, right? There's gonna be another series on Dune on TV, and Sting played the main villain, one of the main antagonists in the first
Dune.
Yeah, in the original Dune movie. Yeah. So, good stuff. Good stuff, man. We are almost into our top 5, and let me show you guys what my number 6 is. Maybe a bit of a surprise, maybe not. If you knew my taste in music, that's me in the corner. Yep, it is. REM, Out of Time, okay, from 1991 or 1990, I believe. I mean, this is, I think this was at the peak of REM's power, okay? No, last time, I think I put in another REM album called Life's Rich Pageant, which is a great album, but, after thinking about it a little bit more, after actually listening to this album again, I love this album. I like this album a lot more than Life's Rich Pageant, even though, Rich Pageant has a pretty, has one of my favorite REM songs in it. But this has like a lot of really, really good songs. Losing My Religion, Near Wild Heaven, Shiny Happy People, Texarkana. It's like, if you want good, happy 90s pop, again, I like happy music. I like happy pop music, obviously, for my list. REM, is it, and this album is like the epitome of, positive music, if you will, positive rock music, if you will. And I'm not saying that in a saccharine kind of sense, or a formulaic kind of sense. I mean, these guys are really, really good artists, musicians, right? And they're very, very diverse in their abilities. And great. This is a really, really good album, guys. And again, if you guys want positive rock and roll music, okay, check out this album. Okay, it'll make you feel good, and it's one of my favorites. I mean, I had to put it number 6 because I always listen to this thing. If I want music to make me happy, guess what? REM, Out of Time. Play the album. You'll be happy. So there it is, number 6, Out of Time. What do you think, Dawg?
Outstanding pick here. Milt, did you change REM albums on me?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I changed it.
You did?
Yeah.
But I want to, what was the album you had before?
Yeah, it was Life's Rich Pageant, as I was saying.
That is an outstanding, awesome album. I just want to thank you so much for sharing that with me. I was blown out of the water because I'd never heard that. Now, just the album that's got like Orange Crush on it.
No. Orange Crush came in the second in the album called Green after. It was Green. The Green album was before this album.
Right. I know I love this album too. I know I'd heard this back in early college days, all that stuff, or later when I was graduating high school stuff. I think it was around the time, but definitely remember that era for sure. REM is outstanding. And again, that I was so happy when you it was one of the I mentioned the band was another one I loved too, listening to that album through, but the REM one too was another one I was like, holy cow, I can't believe I hadn't listened to this before, and they were great. They're just a great band.
Yeah,
awesome.
Excellent band, really, really good band. And I think, this is probably the strongest album, I think. Life's Rich Pageant was really, really good. Don't get me wrong. Because Fall on Me is like a really, really classic song here. But, if I had to, if music is supposed to make you feel good and supply positive energy, I think this album from REM does it a lot more than Life's Rich Pageant does.
Right.
That makes
definitely.
sense.
Yeah. There's definitely a change in, and kind of the genre, the feel, the emotion. Yeah. This is happy rock. Yeah.
And somebody's mentioning Steely Dan in there, and Terry T. Exactly. I wanted to put Pretzel Logic in here on this list, but I couldn't find space for Pretzel Logic. If I could, I would have done it. Okay, so I think next time we gotta do a top 20. Then I can put Pretzel Logic in there by Steely Dan. I know it sucked.
Yeah, I love Steely Dan too. Yeah. So I'm with you, Terry.
Yeah.
We'll blame Milt tonight, though.
Yeah, Berrytown. That's a great song. Check out Berrytown. Anyway, so we're up to our top. We are on our top 5 now, Dawg. It's been a pretty long stream, hasn't it? Yeah.
We're on top 5.
Yeah. Before we get there, I just want to say hi to some other people that joined in late. W Vogs, Bobby Catalano showed up. Who else came in here a little bit late? Rhodes Rant. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining, Rhodes. John, I saw John Matrix pop in here for a little bit, and yeah. So,
I miss John, but hey, John, if you're still there, and
yeah. So thanks a lot. All right, Dawg, are you ready for number?
Oh yeah, I'm ready, buddy.
5? All right. Here
Everybody
we go.
always sees Bubba.
Here we go. Top 5.
Yeah. Oh man, I love this freaking album. Yes, folks, I've seen Rush 9 times. 9 times I've seen Rush, right? And every time it's been absolutely outstanding. It's always been better than the last time I've seen them. So, and if I had to pick one album to introduce someone to Rush, it would definitely be the 2112 album, especially. I'd say at least listen to the first side, right? I mean, the second side's got a few tracks. I think we have Mystic Rhythms might be on it, or Passage to Bangkok is on side 2, I believe. But the whole again, I talked about how I love when music and storytelling kind of comes together, right? I talked about Operation Mindcrime. I'm going to talk about another album down the road here as well, but. This is another album that just absolutely tells a story of kind of a futuristic rock tale where, music has kind of been banned, if you will, right? And all the computers and technology have basically taken over and things of that nature, and nobody can think and have emotion and things of that nature. And but it's told by the instruments of my favorite 3 guys in a band. I'd say Neil Peart and Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee. I love watching them live, and I love their music. Listening to the beginning, the overture part, you get that feel of Tchaikovsky's overture. That's actually kind of blended in a little bit with. When we get into the temples of the Syrinx and things of that nature, some of the tracks that folks might kind of remember, when they do, about the priest and the temples of the Syrinx and stuff of that nature. But there's a whole story with this album. If you're a Rush fan, I'm sure this is probably one of your favorites. Moving Pictures is probably going to be up in there too, and maybe Power Windows and Signals is also another fantastic album too. But if I was going to introduce someone to Rush, what Rush was really kind of, the heart of Rush, it's definitely this album, right? And this album was a big risk for them at the time too, because they were kind of on the outskirts, and things weren't kind of working out. Like with Fly By Night, I think was prior to this one, but they kind of took a big risk with kind of presenting, the story mode that. Bands like The Who and, like I mentioned, Operation Mindcrime would do, Queensryche would do as well down the road. But I love it when they tell stories, Milt. I just love the futuristic story and being a Star Wars geek, things of that nature, man. I love that kind of stuff, man. It just, I love fantasy stuff, and it's great. 2 of my favorite things, kind of coming together at once here. So. 9 times, Mel. I've seen him.
Yeah, you know what, Dawg? It's interesting. The thing about Rush is that I've always noticed when basically talking about Rush to people or just mentioning Rush is that there's like 2 camps. It's like either you really really love Rush or you don't like Rush, right? And I mean, there really is no middle ground in this group, it seems like. And I mean, I think partially that's because of the guy's voice, of Geddy Lee's voice, right? It's an acquired taste. I've always, unfortunately, I've always been part of the second group, right? But, I do not doubt their musicianship because, the amount of power that they put out with just 3 people is amazing. The musicianship of 3 people and generating that much music and that much power is just, it's mind-blowing in a way. And it shows, I guess it just gives you an idea of how good their musicianship is. So yeah, cool. I mean, some of their songs are pretty cool. I think Tom Sawyer was good. And what's the one with what's that one
That's on Movie Pictures, Tom Sawyer.
21st Century Man, or was that one?
New World Man?
The New World Man, yeah, something like that, yeah. Yeah, things like that, yeah. I mean, they're pretty melodic and pretty cool. And
Big Money and Subdivisions is probably my favorite Rush song. But this is my favorite album, just because I love it features more of the instruments even more than that's why I think you'd love the beginning of this more, because it doesn't have Geddy's voice coming in if it's not for you, but you would definitely get a taste of the guitar and the bass and the outstanding drums by Neil Peart, who's arguably the greatest drummer of all time, but one of my favorite bands. By the way, my top 5 have my favorite bands of all time.
Okay.
So that's kind of how they went.
You think this is the best 3-man band ever in rock and roll?
Best 3-man band ever. I think so.
Okay. All right. Cool.
I can't think. It's not going to be Triumph. I don't think from. No.
I mean, I was thinking about either maybe it could be Cream or maybe Nirvana.
Possibly no. I'm going Rush.
Rush, yeah.
Rush.
Yeah, because I think Rush put out a lot more power.
And arguably, you have the greatest bassist of all time in Geddy Lee. Alex Lifeson's ridiculous on guitar, and they're just Neil Peart versus Danny Carey. You would ask that, TGP. You would be a prick and ask that.
Hey, Ginger Baker, man, from Cream, dude.
Might incriminate me. I'm not gonna answer that. That's sick. That's just mean. That's just mean to ask that.
Ginger Baker, Levon Helm. I'm just saying that there's some great drummers. Okay, so anyway, my number 5, guys. Babe, tomorrow so far away. None other than Third Stage from Boston. Okay, this is the album that I listen to every time I freaking take off on a flight. And I've been on lots of airplane flights in my life, okay? This is such a freaking cool album, okay? When I was a kid, again, from end to end, this is great, okay? And this album's actually kind of like, it bookends, right? It's actually a common story, a common theme to this. A common theme to to this album, and it's really, really good. This is Boston's 3rd album, right? What happened with Boston, as Dawg said, and Dawg showed Boston's debut album earlier. That was their first album, and then they actually recorded and released Don't Look Back like 2 years later, and then they had this like big 7-year gap, right, or 8-year gap until 1986. Boston Third Stage came on, and people were just waiting for this friggin' album like years and years, okay, and it did not disappoint, because the first time you heard Amanda on the radio, that was the first single off this track. You knew that this thing was going to hit number 1, and it did. Okay, right away. This album just hit number 1 right away, and it is such a good album. But besides Amanda, right, you had Cool the Engines, right, To Be a Man, and one of my favorite actually is I Think I Like It, and Holly Ann at the end. I mean, this is a really, really good album, guys. I mean, if you're sick of Boston's debut album, check out Third Stage, okay? Because this is really, really, really good.
And don't forget Don't Look Back.
Don't forget Don't Look Back, because that's also a great album too. Yeah. See. I mean, and the thing about Boston is that I was like burnt out on the first album, right? Because when I was young, that was my introduction to Boston, right? It was like I played that thing left and right years continuously. I mean, I got burnt out of that, and then I got into Third Stage, and of course, it's about memories again for me, right? And what album from a particular band evokes the most memories for me, and this really does. And then I've been getting into Don't Look Back lately, because Boston's such a good band. I mean, I still listen to Boston now, and it's. I mean, the level of musicianship is excellent. Again, I keep on saying musicianship, but I really, really respect musicianship, obviously. And these guys were like, top notch. Tom Schultz. I mean, the guy's an engineer from MIT, right? So, but anyway, but yeah, I mean, this Third Stage, man. I mean, this thing kicks ass. Okay, it's not as raucous. It's not as raucous as their first 2 albums, but it still kicks ass.
Absolutely, Mel. Yeah, this is one of my favorite albums too, folks. Again, Boss, the debut album was on my list. It's still, one of my favorites too. But I'll never forget. I was lucky enough to get to see Boston live. Again, I'd mentioned that. And I'll never forget the part of the show when they were getting ready to do "Cool the Engines" and they had all the lights, freaking, kind of like a transformer turning into a freaking spaceship, like the one we see here on the cover and stuff like that. Because that's what those guys were trying to do. They wanted something that was like a space rock kind of thing, right? They wanted that kind of theme, and if you look at their first three, their albums, right? Basically, there's always one song like "Hitch a Ride" or "To Be a Man" or there's always one slow song ballad that just makes you want to, just kind of well up a little bit. So Brad Delp was one of the greatest vocalists too. And again, Milt did mention I wanted to make sure I gave respect to Tom Schultz again. If you don't know much about Tom Schultz, you might want to read about him a little bit, but he was just absolutely outstanding. Can do 500,000 types of instruments, I think it is. So I even taught him play the pipe organ like he was on the Phantom of the Opera and stuff like that. I think he started playing some Bach. Actually, he was playing in fugue or something or whatever heck it is. So, but he started playing Bach at the concert too, and people cheered. Yeah, and granted, person, no jokes about pipe organ music. Okay, so the coolest stories I ever heard about Boston was, and I don't know many bands that do this. But evidently there was a story like back in the 80s during the Third Stage tour where there was bad weather and maybe only half the people showed up or something like that during a concert. Boston told their agents or whoever, give them all refunds. See them doing that.
Yeah, give them all refunds, man. I mean, I don't know any other bands that do that, especially in today's day and age.
I didn't know much about, I knew one thing, they were really big into animal rights and things of that nature too. I remember seeing a lot of articles about some of the goofy stuff that hunters were doing and stuff like that, and they were taking a stand on it. I remembered that, but I was sad about Brad Delp. We lost him, and I do hate to re-mention earlier. Kevin DeBrow did pass away, folks, from Quiet Riot. That was in 2007, but. I think that might have been around. I think Brad Delp passed away maybe around that time too, or maybe a little more recent. But and maybe Sib might not be with us anymore.
Yeah, I think Sib's passed away as well.
Yeah, I think we lost Sib and
the drummer.
Brad for sure.
But Tom Schultz is still rocking on, and he invented like a synthesizer. I think it was called the Rockman, right? That everybody used back in the 80s. So I mean, the guy's genius.
That's what I love was like when you open up those albums or they were CDs to us a lot of times, Mel, but you'd see, credits or whatever, right? And then you'd say, oh, Tom Schultz. Yeah. And he's got like big list of freaking all these instruments. Neil Peart's the same way if you ever, all the different percussion instruments he uses too. But Tom Schultz, I don't think I've ever seen anybody with as much variety. Maybe Frank Zappa possibly, bringing out a bicycle tire or something maybe, but Tom Schultz is incredible, folks.
Awesome. All right, we're going down to number 4 here, and again, guys, thanks a lot for sticking with us. We are number 4. Go ahead,
folks. I would say this is probably the Bible, or not so much the Bible, right? I think it's probably one of the very first heavy metal albums of all time, right? I want to say that I believe that Paul McCartney invented heavy metal with Helter Skelter from the White Album, and I think Deep Purple with the album Machine Head just showed heavy metal is coming, folks, and it's definitely going to be a thing in the future here. This is one of the greatest albums of all time, released I believe in 1968. Where's my old notes here? March 1972 something. Or maybe that was how successful it had been. Let's see, I'm reading right. I had to go back here. 1972, this came out. Yeah, it was the year I was born. That's why I loved it so much, too, because it was the year I was born it came out. Their band was formed in 68. So But yeah, this album came out in '72. It was 20 weeks at number 1 on the UK charts. It did reach number 7 in the United States, folks. But all up and down through this album is just pure great epicness of the rock and roll genre and the beginnings of what we would call I guess I would call this the foundation of heavy metal music. So some folks might argue with me on that, but hey, man, I'm an old fart, so I've been around too, and I know my stuff. So yeah, Deep Purple, yeah, they're freaking badass. So
Yeah,
I mean, you got Highway Star on it.
Yeah, is Smoke on the Water on this album as well?
Yeah, Smoke on the Water is definitely on this one too.
Cool, yeah. Because I remember listening to some Deep Purple. I mean, they weren't quite heavy metal, right? The early Deep Purple, like this, right? It wasn't quite heavy metal yet. Is that true? Were they still sort of like more hard rock, quote unquote?
It would be classic hard rock at the time.
Yeah, okay.
And I think it's the foundations of why we would get our AC/DCs and our Judas Priest and our Quiet Rites and our Def Leppards and our Dawkins and Guns N' Roses and Tesla and all those different all those hair bands we came across and some of the other Slayer and Megadeth and Metallica and all that stuff. I think that there is a seed. I think there was a seed planted from Helter Skelter, and it led into stuff like this, right? Mm-hmm. And just expanded, and we got some fantastic, great music because of that. So
who is more influential? So who is more influential in your opinion for the progression to heavy metal? Was it Deep Purple?
I'd say the Beatles in the long run. I think the Beatles were the seed. I think Paul McCartney with Helter Skelter, with that White Album, the Beatles showed that they could absolutely change their sound completely when they released, I think like Sgt. Pepper, even Magical Mystery Tour, of course. But they kind of, they went away from I Want to Hold Your Hand kind of, that kind of stuff to whoa, this is freaking amazing, right? And then, you look at Helter Skelter, it's the foundation, it's the seed of heavy metal. It really is. And I think that this album is one of the first heavy metal albums of all time. And I'm proud to have it on my list here, Mel. I love this album. I love this band, man.
As John Aaron would say, the seed is strong. The
seed is strong. The seed is strong.
Anyway, Game of Thrones reference for everybody there. He's actually read the book.
Yeah, just real quickly, folks. You had songs like Highway Star, Space Truckin', and of course everybody's heard Smoke on the Water, right? But these are albums, right? So I would really, test your waters a little bit, play through the whole entire album if you get a chance, if you want to, if you get bored or whatever, you want to check it out. It's just some fantastic music.
Yeah.
All the way through.
So Black Sabbath or Deep Purple, Dog?
I gotta go with purple just a little bit.
All right.
It's close though, Milt. If we were having a greatest hits album, like a top 10 greatest hits albums, I'd have Black Sabbath would be probably my number 1.
All right.
I love Black Sabbath as well. I love Ozzy Osbourne. That was one of them that I was kind of butthurt about not having on the list tonight.
All right. So my number 4. All right, guys, we're getting really mellow here, okay? Because that's what the Westeros Ninja does. Come on, who doesn't like Cat Stevens? And if you ever listen to Tea for the Tillerman, it is the epitome of coolness, the epitome of calmness, the epitome of just a good singer songwriter, okay? And this is a guy with a guitar, okay? A guy with a guitar, Cat Stevens probably maybe one top on your list, okay? Or one of the guys on top of your list, okay? Because this album is so good, okay? Father and Son is such a classic song, okay? And it's really, really sweet, and it really evokes a lot of memories, bad memories for me, but it actually helped me out a lot during a rough period of my life. And there's also things like Wild World in here, right? Hard-Headed Women, it's
Another
great
Saturday
stuff.
night.
T for what?
Another Saturday night.
Another Saturday Night's not on this album.
Oh, okay.
It's not on this album. Where Did the Children Play? I mean, it's really, really good music, okay? And again, if you just want to chill out on a rainy Sunday morning and you finished with Hall Notes, Abandoned Luncheonette, put this thing on, okay? Because it's really uplifting in a way. And yeah, I mean, it actually brings you back to a more simple, pure, more pure time in American history. So, even though he was British, but it was really, really, it's really a good album. And yeah, I mean, I can't.
Great album.
Great album, and I can't really. I don't know what else to say about it other than that. This thing really helped me through in my life. And again, our top 15 isn't about agreeing with critics and agreeing with the general popular consensus as to what is the best 15 albums of all time. It's basically what are the best 15 albums for each of us, right? So, and this is definitely hits me on a personal and spiritual level. And again, really, really great music in here as well. So there you guys have it. Cat Stevens, T for the Tillerman.
Love this. Yeah, love that album. That's another one where I mentioned when I hear vinyl.
Yeah.
I think of like Toys in the Attic, and then I think of Cat Stevens as well, Mel. And that's one I loved playing through when we went. When we did this prior to. Great pick here, Mel.
Yeah, and check out Cat Stevens still rocking on. I mean, like for a period from the late 70s to like the mid 2000s, right? He prescribed to the tenets of Islamic fundamentalism, right? He changed his name to Yusuf Islam, right? And then he basically sold off all his guitars and just basically stopped basically making music. And and what happened, and he basically fell off the face of the earth, if you will. After in the 80s, remember Salman Rushdie? He made that he wrote that book, there's the Satanic Verses.
That name rings a bell.
Yusuf Islam, or the former Cat Stevens, basically wanted the Islamic world to issue a fatwa against Salman Rushdie to kill him, right? So basically, and that was how fundamentalist he turned back then. And at that point, they actually took one of the Cat Stevens songs from this album, 10,000 Maniacs, right, that I had earlier today, called Peace Train, because that was definitely the opposite of being peaceful when you issue a fatwa against somebody, and they took it off from the album. So, and for a long time, Peace Train was not included in releases of In My Tribe, and but I got one of the early releases of the CD, and Peace Train is on it. So, but now it's back on anyway, so I don't feel it's cool anymore having the CD. But Cat Stevens had a really interesting life, and he converted to Islam when he almost drowned. So that was kind of an interesting story. Sort of like the damp hair Aaron Greyjoy turned into a drowned priest after he almost drowned. It's almost a kind of an interesting parallel there in a way. Number 4, man. I mean, T for the Tillerman. You guys got to check it out, really. You guys got to check it out.
I was just I can't say enough. I love this album again. Yeah, these are those old great campfire song albums too, and the Sunday morning rainy day type of albums and stuff. Fantastic. Yeah. I noticed Felicia there was talking about she's too young to appreciate hair bands, and if I can appreciate a hair band, you can too. There's no excuse for not being able to appreciate a hair band. No pun intended here.
Good one, man. Okay, so anyway.
Well, I have my moments.
All right, good one. So, Hey, we are on to our top three. Can you believe it?
Top three.
Top
It is, isn't
three
it?
here. Top three.
I got 25 more songs. Wait.
All right. So here it is. Go for it.
Folks,
Number three.
I love this album. It's my favorite. And again, these are my top probably five bands of all time. When we get to the top five, I put my top five favorite bands of all time in the top five, and the Who is my third favorite band of all time. And if I had to pick one album to share amongst somebody that never heard the Who before, I'd hand them Tommy. I would. You're going to get a whole a range of what the Who was, I think, throughout their entirety almost, and pretty much this whole entire album. The overture, there's times where it just brings me to tears at times, listening to the acoustic guitar and Roger Daltrey's voice and things of that nature, and just a lot of and again, this was I mentioned earlier, I love when music and the lyrics and things of that nature, they try to tell a story as opposed to, oh, this person's good looking or something like that, I want to get with them or something, or the stupid, the generic nonsensical lyrics, I call it, right, where it just there's no originality to it, right? To me, this is original. It's something that where they try to really do something with making rock and roll into an art as opposed to just something we just kind of play in our radio, right? But this is where we ended up actually getting to hear great music along with a great story as well. And there's probably there's a lot of deep meanings to it too. But of course, everybody knows Pinball Wizard. See Me, Feel Me, Christmas Morning's probably one of my favorites. I'm Free. Sensation is one of my favorites too. We're Not Gonna Take It. But yeah, I love that overture. That overture just is just some of my favorite stuff. And as I go through that whole album, it brings me back to even when they bring in Elton John and Phil Collins to play like Uncle Ernie, and Tina Turner as the Gypsy, the Acid Queen. Just some outstanding stuff, just outstanding memories with this. But if I was, are my favorite Who songs even on this album? And no, probably not. There's a lot of Who songs that are my favorite Who songs of all time, right? And they're not even on this album, right? But it was close to this album and Who's Next. Yeah, I think it was really close as far as which one am I gonna pick. But yeah, this one had the most memories for me, and the most meaning. And I listened to it again today, and I just loved it, just all the way through. Yeah, and the thing is, it's like nobody does a concept album like the Who does, right? I mean, Tommy was like one of the very first concept albums, right, where all the songs are basically tied together into a story, really. And Quadrophenia, right, is a very underrated album, but that album rocks as well, right? I mean, absolutely. And then you have Who's Next. I mean, this is a great choice, Dawg, because I love this album too. And it's like I mentioned way back when we started the stream. That it was albums like this that thank you for this album. So we got Operation Mindcrime. We got 2112. I think that is a fair thing to say. I think is the concept art rock, right? And it's thank you, Mel. And definitely. And but man, if I had to choose my favorite Who album, I'm like you. Would you rather have Who's Next, which is more like a traditional kind of album, right? A lot of great songs, or like a concept album where all the songs fit together, like Tommy? It's a really hard choice. Very tough. It's a really hard choice, and I think it depends on your mood, really, than anything else. I just feel that if somebody had never heard the Who, and if I handed them this album and they got through it and they liked it, I think they're a Who fan. I think they will be a Who fan if they got through this album and liked it. I think they are gonna dig the Who. Yeah, but if I was gonna actually introduce somebody to the Who, I would probably give probably
so
go
who's
the
next
route.
first?
Yep.
Who's next first?
It's a kind of a.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going. I don't know. Oh, so.
Yeah, but but great choice. I mean, Tommy's a great album, guys. Great. Yeah. What can we say about Tommy and the Who? And number 3 now, right? That's number 3. Wow, we're number 3. All right, guys. Everybody must get stoned. None other than Bob Dylan. Okay, Blonde on Blonde. Okay, first major double album in history. Okay, you can't beat this guy. Okay, I mean, Bob Dylan's a freaking legend, right? At number 15, I showed his son, right, with the Wallflowers. Number 3. Okay, that shouldn't say number 9. That's really should be 3. There. Okay, is it's Blonde on Blonde. You can't. This is probably the greatest Bob Dylan album. I mean, sometimes I juggle around either this or Blood on the Tracks. Okay, but at the end of the day, it's still no comparison. Blonde on Blonde is just so much better than I think a lot of the rest of his albums. I mean, okay, again, Blood on the Tracks, Highway 61 Revisited are pretty good, okay, but Blonde on Blonde still beats them. And this was great. I mean, from end to end, you had, classic songs, Rainy Day Women, Visions of Johanna, I Want You, Just Like a Woman, right? Absolutely Sweet Marie, God, it goes on and on and on and on. And then the last song, right, it's like 11 minutes long, right? Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands. I mean, in the original vinyl form, that took up one entire side. Okay, that was just one song, 11 minutes on vinyl. And this is great stuff, and this is a revolutionary album here. So, I mean, we're getting into like revolutionary albums. This is probably one of them, okay, in the annals of rock and roll, if you will. And it's, love this album. Love this album. I still play it to this day. Bob Dylan, Blonde on Blonde.
Great choice here, Mel. Yeah. Again, this would be this is like how I hate to piggyback off of what I said before, where I'm going, if you've never heard this person, but yeah, if you'd never heard Bob Dylan before, I would hand you this album right here and say, give this a spin, and if you like this, you might want to check out the rest of his stuff there too. So, but a great album as well. So definitely heard this one in the vinyls era for sure.
Yeah. Dawg, Bob Dylan is kind of polarizing because not many people like his voice, right, for obvious reasons, right? It's very nasally and it's very harsh sometimes. If I was gonna, but Dawg, again to your point, what is the most accessible Bob Dylan album? Okay, for kind of like a normal person, right, an average listener. Okay, I would probably have to go with actually more like Blood on the Tracks because it's better produced. It's not as raw, But that's just me. It sounds cleaner, right?
It's kind of like when I was kind of when I was mentioning about the Judas Priest one, where folks were probably they're like, British Steel versus Screaming for Vengeance, right? Yeah. And it's definitely the same. I see exactly what your point there.
Yeah.
Buddy.
Yeah, it's just like production value, I think, matters in some
exactly.
in a lot of cases.
Production value is huge.
Yeah. But they're both great albums. But I get your point. I mean, this is a freaking great album. Okay, and love it. So you own a lot of Dylan albums, Dawg?
Not offhand.
Yeah.
Anymore. I pretty much have everything in MP3s now. So
okay, yeah. Yeah, it was really tough. Like getting.
I was bummed when we did this prior to, because I had tried to go back and listen, but a lot of times you got to listen. Which is fine. I was listening to his stuff live, but a lot of the copyright crap and all that stuff that goes on, you can't just hear the old original studio version. A lot of times it's tough to find sometimes with bands like Dylan. Or artists like Dylan and Zeppelin can be tough sometimes. AC/DC is really tough right now. That was another one that's on the top of my head that's tough to find some stuff on YouTube searching.
Okay, wow, man, they're putting the hammer down on a lot of this stuff, huh? So too bad. So Anyway, yeah, Tom Baker, Doctor Who. So anyway, yeah. So, all right. I think we're in the top two here, Dog.
We are. We are in the top.
We are in our most favorite albums of all time. And Dog, you're starting out. You're number two.
Golden slumbers fill your eyes. Smiles awake you when you rise. Sleep, pretty darling, do not cry. And I will sing a lullaby. I love this freaking album, man. It's my favorite Beatles album of all time. I love Here Comes the Sun. I love Here Comes the Sun so much that I just love it's my favorite song of all time. I still to this day I love Here Comes the Sun, and so many Beatles albums to choose from, folks. But yes, it's to me it's Abbey Road. I love the medleys. I love Something and Come Together, and and a lot of the George Harrison stuff, as well. Of course, with Here Comes the Sun, and what would out of all the albums of the Beatles, this is the one for me. So, and I love the White Album. I love Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour, even some of the Hold Your Hand stuff that I talked about before. But when the Beatles, when they changed and turned into the modern, I guess what I would call the modern Beatles, that was the genre I loved the most, right? And the Let It Be album, to end it, of course, too. So, but I love this album all the way through. I can't talk about it enough. Something Because is on there. There's so much great music. So I think it just I think this was their I have notes here in front of me. 26 September 1969, folks. And I believe this is their last. Yeah, this was their last recorded album in the studio together, right? So I know we had Let It Be, but a lot of that was kind of pieced together from sessions like a year earlier, right? But this was our last. It was a 15 million records in 3 months or something ridiculous like that. It said, it was something. 4 million records in the first 2 months that sold. So
something in the way awesome. She moves. So, I know. And something is I read it's like the most covered song in history, but I think it's soon going to be overtaken by Shallow from last year from A Star Is Born. But something is I love that song, and this album is great. And as Terry T mentioned, like the whole Paul is dead thing. And one of the conspiracy theories as to why those rumors kept on coming on, kept on lasting, was the fact that this album cover, right? He's the only guy with no shoes.
And he's out of step too.
It's like a Jesus Christ metaphor here going on here. And there's that license plate on that VW Bug. Evidently, I can't zoom in on it right now, but it has his birthday or something like that on it.
28F.
Exactly. Something crazy going on there.
So you got George as the gravedigger.
I
think John's the priest.
Yep.
And Undertaker is Ringo.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stories.
And he's the only one with a cigarette in his hand too.
Yeah. And then if you go into the Sgt. Pepper album cover, right, you see that Paul with a question mark, which is really a guitar, right, in the vegetation, right, in the grass in that cover. But some people thought it looked like Paul question mark, like is he really dead? So anyway,
also on that cover, I should have put that cover up here too, just for shits and giggles. I knew we were going to talk about. There's like a hand like over Paul's head.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be a symbol for death too. They were trolling everybody, they were trolling.
Yeah, of course.
They were geniuses.
Yeah. And there's something like was there something about if you played Sgt. Pepper's backwards, right? You would hear something weird like Paul or something like that going on. Anyway, there's some crazy stuff that was going on with that whole conspiracy. So but great album, man. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you have the Beatles album here, which is great. I don't. I mean, I love the Beatles, and I don't know. Maybe I just don't listen to it as much as I used to. But I mean, I always like Magical Mystery Tour for whatever reason. I like that album.
I love that album, man. Your mother should know, and
yeah, no, I'm the Walrus because it's so whimsical.
Rich Man, I love that song too.
Yeah, it's so whimsical. That's what I like about that album. But anyway, yeah, but the Beatles, man. I mean, every album's different, almost, right? Every album's different. So, and everybody has their preferences. So, let's go to my number 2. Whoa, man, we're almost done here. My throat's hoarse. Your voice is hoarse. My throat's like really raw. But anyway, numero dos, none other than Pink Floyd. Wish You Were Here, guys. Wish You Were. No, it's not Dark Side of the Moon, people. It is Wish You Were Here. This thing is kick ass. This thing is awesome. I love this album. Okay. And there's another one of these Pink Floyd concept albums, right? It basically revolved around, Sid Barrett, if you believe that, kind of like the original lead singer and an original founder of Pink Floyd. But man, I mean, this is great. I mean, it only has like 6 songs, right? And of course, one song has like 9 parts to it, but really, there's only 6 songs here. But you got the title song, which is a classic, Wish You Were Here. Shine On You Crazy Diamond, right? That's about Sid Barrett. Welcome to the Machine. Okay, that's probably more of a statement against the evils and corruptness of the record industry and that kind of stuff. But this is really a great album, and I always find myself listening to this. Okay, if I'm just kind of like, just in a mood for some music, right? Just pop on some Pink Floyd, man. Pop on some classic rock, and Pink Floyd's on top of the list. Who doesn't like Pink Floyd? Yeah,
if you appreciate music, check this one out. Welcome to the Machine. It's freaking amazing, dude.
Yeah. But man, Wish You Were Here is so freaking awesome. And I saw Roger Waters actually do a rendition of that when he actually visited Houston about maybe 2006, 2005, right? He came out with an album back then, and I was able to like go up and actually see the Roger Waters concert, and there was a lot of THC floating around near that night. So, but it was really, really good. So, what can I say about this album? I mean, love this album. I mean, it's probably the best Pink Floyd album in my opinion. Other people would definitely disagree with me, but to me, this is my personal favorite, and great band altogether. Love this one. Wish You Were Here.
Awesome choice there, Mel. Yeah, I love Pink Floyd as well. The Wall album, of course, but this is one I think this is one I go to a little bit more than even the Wall.
Yeah.
Is Wish You Were Here. So and of course I got all giddy, hearing Welcome to the Machine. So I absolutely love that song.
Welcome to the Machine. Yeah.
Little subtleties about it that I just absolutely. I love the little details of the musicians and things of that nature. So it's fantastic. And hey, Moni G. I haven't seen her in a while. You just missed the Beatles. Me and Moni love the Beatles. I know Moni loves the Beatles, but I don't know if she saw the Abbey Road part. But.
Yeah. So if you guys came in late, just go ahead and rewind. Yeah. The DVR is turned on. So we're going through our top 15 favorites. From our respective collections here. So we are down to number 1, Dawg. We are down to number 1.
And folks, my favorite band of all time is Tool. I love Tool. And again, the rule was I had to make this rule, or else we were going to see every single Tool album on this list, right? So I had to pick one out of my favorite bands, of course. And if I had to select one, it was Enema. So there's a lot of other ones I love too. Lateralis, 10,000 Days, Undertow's freaking amazing too. Are my favorite Tool songs even on this album? Again, that seems to be a running thing with a lot of my albums, but maybe not. But however, all the way through this album, I can go through all the Tool albums too. I really got to split hairs trying to pick my favorite Tool album of all time, but this album was dedicated to Bill Hicks, folks. This came out in 1993, and I wasn't even really introduced to Tool much. Until a friend of mine had kind of asked me about them. I think it was right after I got out of the service in around 96 or something. And he was like, hey, have you ever heard Tool? Have you ever heard the band Tool? And I just started cracking up and laughing because of the name Tool. And I was like, is there really a band called Tool? You know, because, you know, again, I'm from the hard, the Poisons and the Def Leppards and the Doors and things of that nature, right? But to hear a band called Tool, it just absolutely cracked me up. And but when he played, I think it was, and I'm pretty sure it was this album because I definitely remember hearing 46 and 2, and Stinkfist, and I was blown out of the water by it, and I have been ever since. Right? I mean, I listen to Tool more than probably any music nowadays. I go back to it a lot more than any other genres. Maybe a little too much at times, but. Again, real quickly, this was their second album, and 93 was, I'm sorry, I misspoke there. 93 is when Undertow came out. In 96, and that makes sense, this was definitely the first album I had heard because I got out of the Navy in 96. So, September 17th, 1996. I was out on September 13th, 1996. Go figure. So, real quickly, the band to me, a lot of folks like to categorize them as like art rock or something like that. I don't know. I just think they're their own genre. I really do. But all the stuff that I had been talking about prior to, where I love when music tells a story, right, and has a lot more concepts to it. This band does that with every single freaking song, every lyric. Just similar to Rush is like that too. The lyrics that Neil Peart writes, right? So you have Danny Carey and Adam Jones. Forgive me right now. I'm trying to think. And you have guys making the music. You have Maynard Keenan, writing the lyrics after he gets the music, right? And similar to kind of how Rush would operate too, with Neil Peart writing the lyrics too. It's just amazing to hear all the instruments. Again, how TGP mentioned to me before, Neil Peart or Danny Carey, man, it is tough. I think Danny Carey is probably the greatest. Between him and Neil Peart, Keith Moon, John Bonham. I mean, the greatest drummer of all time. It very well may be Danny Carey. I think I might be ready to concede that it's Danny Carey. He's the greatest drummer of all time, folks. And just some fantastic tracks on here. We have Stinkfist. We have a song called Stinkfist, folks. Eulogy H is on here. 46 and 2. There's a little bit of in between songs that are like little in between the tracks. They're kind of funny and amusing if you get a chance. There's a song about hookers with things, right? Jimmy's on here as well. Push Shit. I don't know if it's push it or push shit, but it's all just kind of one word, but another outstanding song here. And then the title track, Enema, as well, right? And I just want to flush it all away and, learn to swim. So if you've never heard Tool before, might want to check out Enema. And if you like this album, I would say go back, listen to Undertow, listen to Lateralis, all the albums, right? And also 10,000 Days. And guess what, folks? Soon we're going to have a new album, and I've been looking forward to it. It's been 13 years since a Tool album. And I think the last time we talked, Mel, about I mentioned about Tool was like, this was where I didn't know if we were getting an album. I really didn't at that time when we did our stream. I was like, I don't know if we're going to get a new album. I hear rumors and things of that nature, but I don't know for sure. And if they don't come out with an album, I'm going to be okay with that. If they do, I'm going to be happy as well. But if they don't, I'm satisfied with what they gave us. I feel that they are the greatest rock and roll. I feel like they're the greatest band of all time. Even the Beatles, Led Zeppelins, the Doors, name Elvis Presley's, the Michael Jacksons of the world. To me, there is no better music than Tool. Other than maybe I'd have to pull back and go way back to like Bach and Schubert and it's that things of that nature, Tchaikovsky, but to me, Tool is the greatest of all of them. I love Tool.
Yeah. Hey, you know something? You know what's amazing about the stream and this list that we're doing is that you can have in your number one spot an album from a band that I've never listened to in my life, honestly. Okay, isn't that amazing? It's like, it shows you the diversity of music and basically the differences of people's musical tastes, if you will, and what they consider, to be, how music affects them. And I totally get your respect and your admiration to this band. The way you're talking about it. This seems like a really good band and good music to listen to. So I'm gonna have to check this out and this whole band out because again, I've never listened to these guys.
Again, you might have heard the song "Sober." I'll bet you might have been a little bit more commercial or possibly even a pot or. But I'd imagine you might have heard "Sober" playing on the radio once or twice. But the only thing I wanted to reiterate here was the fact that I love music that when they show the art and when the words actually mean things and every song that Tool does is like that. There's none of that happy nonsense of I got to get with this girl and and all that stuff and holler at me, twerk for me, all that happy nonsense from all the crap music of today, right?
Yeah.
This is actually art. To me, it's like looking at the Mona Lisa, right? When I listen to Tool, it's absolutely art.
All right, man.
That's the last thing I wanted to say about it.
I dig your enthusiasm, man. Dig your enthusiasm here. So, hey, Dawg, remember when I was saying that the 80s era was my favorite era of music? Well, you know what? My number one is an album from the 80s period, and it's none other than, you got it, Girl You Know It's True by Milli Vanilli. Girl You Know It's True.
Yeah, blame it on the rain.
Come on, you guys can't beat this album. This was the top of the class in the 1980s, okay? And the good thing is that these guys were able to make music without actually singing it, right? And tell me if Tool can do that. Can Tool make music without playing instruments or singing? Because these guys did that. So think about it that way. You can't beat these guys. The pop is like the apex of pop music, okay, in the 80s, okay, must be Milli Vanilli. And the cool thing about these guys also is that they, even after they were caught, they were trying to convince people that they were actually musically talented, so they actually released a second album with them singing. And of course that flopped. So anyway, but you can't beat the first version of Milli Vanilli. Ultra talented, able to basically produce music without actually being involved in it. So you basically gotta give major ups to these guys as being like the quintessential musical artist. But I'm just kidding. It really isn't. It really isn't Milli Vanilli, guys. Okay, so in fact, my number one is. Come on. None other than The Stranger by Billy Joel, okay? Seriously, and this is not a troll, okay? I love The Stranger. I love this freaking album, okay? I seriously love it. If my CD player was on, okay? My stereo was on, I would listen to this freaking album, okay? This is the album I'd listen to, okay? It's freaking The Stranger. Every single song in this album is great, okay? It's, again, okay, you guys probably know my musical taste right now, right? I like softer, kind of pop-oriented, sometimes with an edge kind of music here, but, more calming music and more positive music here. But, you have, like, Moving Out, right? You got The Stranger, right? You got Just the Way, You Are. You got freaking, She's Only a Woman. You got, you got everything here. You got Vienna, which is like the best Billy Joel song of all time, is Vienna. Check out freaking Vienna, guys, if you have a chance. Okay, seriously. DA, get the link out for Vienna on YouTube. Make these guys listen to freaking Vienna. That is like the best Billy Joel song of all time here. And I don't know what else to say about this. I don't know what else to say about this album. I love this thing so much. In fact, I have 2 copies. I have this album on regular CD, and I also got this album on Super Audio CD. So this is my only double album purchase. So because I wanted to hear this in better clarity back when I had stereo equipment actually out in my house instead of in the garage. So anyway, yeah, Billy Joel, The Stranger. You can't beat this at all. I
love that album too, Mel.
Yeah. Man, it's awesome.
We got Moving Out's on there, right? And
yeah, Moving Out. Yeah, you got Scenes from a Italian Restaurant here.
That's my favorite on that album. I know you like Vienna, but
I love Vienna. Yeah,
Italian Restaurant's my favorite.
Yeah, yeah. She's always a woman is really, really. Some people might say it's sappy, but I think it's a really moving, beautiful song. So yeah.
Don't Ask Me Why on there too.
Who? What?
Don't Ask Me Why.
Don't Ask Me Why is not on it.
Okay. That might have been
I
prior
think Don't Ask Me Why is like on 52nd Street.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the album that actually won a Grammy for Best Album, it's 52nd Street. This didn't win, I don't think this won a Grammy for Best Album. This should have won a freaking Grammy. Okay? This album should have won it because it's like only the best album of all time, according to the Westerosi Ninja. So anyway, yeah, this is, yeah, what can I say? Love this album, man. Billy Joel.
Love it.
The Stranger.
Love some Billy Joel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Glass House was a great album also. Oni G says, yes.
The what?
I agree. Glass Houses was a great album too.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah.
You may be right. I may be crazy.
Yeah. Was that the one with the theme song from Bosom Buddies?
Oh, Bosom Buddies?
Yeah. I don't know. My Life.
Oh yeah, it was My Life.
My
yep,
Life,
that's
yeah.
what it was.
Bosom Buddies, yeah. My Life.
Just say anymore. Yep,
My
that's great.
Life. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, with Tom Hanks and the other guy that was the other buddy.
Yeah, the guy that disappeared after the show, but Tom Hanks just rocketed to superstardom after that
I
show.
forgot who the hell his buddy was.
Yeah, I don't know the name. No, Peter Scolari or something like that. I think it's Peter Scolari or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can tell I watched that show.
And next thing you know, Tom Hanks was doing Bachelor Party, and then
Splash. Splash was his big hit, right?
Yep.
In '84.
I think, I want to say, that Bachelor Party was one of the first ones he did. He had a stinker in there too, like the man with one red shoe or something too. It was,
yeah.
Carrie Fisher was in it though.
Yeah. Hey, Felicia, if you were paying attention, Dawg did have an Elton John album in his list. Goodbye, Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah, Goodbye, Yellow Brick Road on there.
Yeah. So pay attention. So anyway, but it was it was good stuff. Yeah, and man, Billy Joel, dude, The Stranger. You guys gotta check it out. Really, you guys gotta check it out if you haven't listened to it.
Definitely.
And again, this is more of a lazy Friday night kind of album, where
he's the godfather
of
the lounge singers.
Yeah.
But he makes lounge singing freaking absolutely amazing
exactly.
artist, amazement, right?
Yeah. Say if you had nothing to do on a Friday night, okay, and but you still kind of wanted to go out, but you didn't want to drive out because it's raining or something like that, or because there's too much traffic. Listen to this album, okay? The pop, get a glass of wine. I don't drink wine, but I don't listen to music when I drink. So, but if I did listen to music when I drank, and if I was bored on Friday night because I couldn't go out, I would pop in this album and check it and basically listen to it. If that makes sense to anybody. Instead of playing video games.
What? You can play video games and listen to music, though.
Yeah. I'll play video games either. I mean, I have no soul. But anyway, so that's, except for one game, right? Fallout New Vegas, man. Fallout New Vegas is tops. All right, so that's it, folks. That is our list, but we're not done yet. We're going to go ahead now and summarize our list. Okay, for anybody who came in late and missed all of our top 15 albums. And we're going to start with Dawg's top 15 list right now.
All right, folks. Yep, my number one was Enema by Tool, the greatest band of all time. And number two is Abbey Road by the Beatles. And number three, I have Tommy by The Who. Number four, I have Machine Head by Deep Purple. Number five is 2112 by Rush. And number six, we have Synchronicity by The Police. Number seven, Quiet Riot's Mental Health. Number eight, Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance. Number nine, Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic. Number 10, I have Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Number 11, Pyromania by Def Leppard. Number 12, Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Number 13, Sticky Fingers by the Rolling Stones. Number 14, Boston's debut album. And number 14 was Welcome to Operation Mindcrime.
And Dawg, for Felicia's sake, what was your number 12 album again?
My number 12 album was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
By who?
All the Young Girls Love Alice.
By who?
I said, Where All the Young Girls Love Alice.
Okay, yep. All right. There you go, Felicia. And for my number, Elton John. And for my top 15, did I say that wrong? As I'm going backwards now here. Number 15, The Wallflowers, Bringing Down a Horse. Number 14, Love Scenes by Diana Krall. Check it out, guys, if you like jazz or if you want a good introduction to modern jazz. 13, jazz pop, if you will. Number 13 is Achtung Baby by U2. Number 12 is Abandoned Luncheonette by Daryl Hall and John Oates. Number 11 is 10,000 Maniacs with In My Tribe. Number 10 is The Band by The Band. Number 9 is The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and The Spiders from Mars by David Bowie. Number 8 is Definitely Maybe by Oasis. Number 7, Running on Empty by Jackson Browne. Number 6, Out of Time by R.E.M. Number 5, Third Stage, man, Boston. Number 4, Tea for the Tillerman by Cat Stevens. Number 3, Blonde on Blonde by Bob Dylan. Number 2, Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. And my number 1, The Stranger by Billy Joel. And guys, that is it for us. Thanks a lot for coming out. And what do you think, Dawg? Did you have a good time getting this list together?
Definitely, man. It's been too long, Milt. It's been too long for us, buddy.
Yeah, and it sure has. And again, I've invested in a folding table, so I can basically put my computer on it and take it out really, really quickly, as I'm living in an empty house here. So, but it's it's great, and I mean, we should be back hopefully very, very soon, depending on extra stuff that could be happening outside of our control. But hopefully with another topic, right?
Definitely.
Or maybe, so, we got Quentin Tarantino coming out, Quentin Tarantino movie coming out in a couple of weeks here. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so we got to check that out. We still need to do our review of Cobra Kai Season 2. We haven't done that yet. And as well as, there's, what else? There's a lot of more top 5 lists that we need to do, right? Obviously we're branching away from Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire stuff out right now because that's kind of like in the back of everybody's mind. But there's a lot more subjects that we can do.
Yeah, like top 5 things that pissed me off in Game of Thrones. Just off the top of my head.
Top 5 things that we could have changed in Season 8 Game of Thrones.
That's a nice little positive twist on that.
And top 5 science fiction movies. Who knows? But there's a lot of stuff we can do. So, top 5 albums for the 2000s? Sure, Felicia. And so anyway, Maybe. Yeah. But besides that, it's been a pleasure, Dawg, having you here, and it's been a pleasure, to the chat. Everybody who came out and actually basically sat through our top 15 albums. I mean, it must have been exhausting for you guys to do that, but we had fun. Dawg and I had fun, so that's all that matters. So I guess that is it, guys. Thanks a lot for coming out. Dawg, any last words? What you're up to? Any more video games?
Yeah, I'll be playing a little bit. I'm kind of on hiatus as far as doing content right now, folks. So not sure what I'm gonna do, but I'll be back here with Milt next time he wants me on, and we're ready to do a topic for you. It's again, thanks for being out here. It's great to see a lot of you again as well. So I hope you enjoyed it. I was a little bummed I didn't get to put like Zeppelin in the Doors, and Ozzy Osbourne was another was my three there. I was kind of a little bummed at, just in case folks were wondering, well, who didn't make your list? So you're kind of like on the edge, but those guys were real close.
Yeah, and I was bummed not to have like Steely Dan on it, as well as Celine Dion. So with that, I guess that is all, guys. So have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see y'all later.
Ninja JK, dupla, jinxa, bota, chakra em cada linha de faca, faz macramé no micado, base, espadas por frases, sintático, repara no que diga, é paradigmático, não tem paralelo, sou para lado mágico, sabes como rolo, martelo pneumático, técnica secreta do monstro roxo, estamos a meter-nos no dojo, estamos a manter como no jogo, só com uma espada nos tojos, plano picado, não sabes de onde esta ave vem, nenhum radar pode detectar onde está a nave mãe, tu sabes bem. Somos a clique, somos o clã. É Monster Jinx cabrão, respeito ao baixo, comer tartan. Na terra do nunca não digo banzai. Vivo na espunca e tenho um bonsai. Ninja que é ninja, frotas imperiais. E bate mal, logo bate mais. A minha crew não sem espelhos. Na rua, dragão azul, dragão vermelho. Sente o silêncio. Verso shinobi, nunca me canso. Sou de Nairobi, ágil como um ninja. Rápido como um ninja, letal como um ninja. Brutal como um ninja, fatal como um ninja. Forte como um ninja, secreto como um ninja. Devo mesmo ser um ninja.
Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus ninjas? Ninjas, 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 ninjas. Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os